Chapter 305. Lin Muyu pulled out the arrow from Qin Lei's arm, hugged him, and said in a trembling voice, it's okay, brother Qin Lei. I will protect her in your place, I won't let anyone hurt her. Qin Lei didn't say anything, his body gradually turning cold, and the last strength of his life slowly faded away. Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the other imperial guards all dismounted and knelt on the ground, tears flowing uncontrollably. The imperial guards of the Qin Empire, the commander of the imperial guards, Qin Lei, had died for his country. Get on the horse and find Her Highness Yin. Lin Muyu mounted the horse and wiped away the tears on his face. He thought he was just a passerby in this world, but today he was no longer. On the roadside, groups of refugees escaped from Lanyan City, but what awaited them were more and more hunting teams. Lin Muyu held the dragon spirit sword and rode back and forth with Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others, but didn't kill anyone. In front of them, a group of ragged commoners were scared out of their wits when they saw them in the Iha nation's military uniform, but they couldn't run anymore. They just sat in the forest and cried bitterly. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and rode forward, saying, don't cry, we're not from the Iha nation. Let me ask you, do you know where Her Highness Qin Yin is? You're not from the Iha nation? A young girl about 20 years old asked while crying. Yes, no, we're the imperial army, but we've changed into the Iha nation's uniform. Then The young girl suddenly burst into tears, rushing forward and waving her fists to hit Lin Muyu, crying and saying, you trash? What imperial army? You actually let the dogs of the Iha nation kill so many innocent commoners. You're not the imperial army, you're just a bunch of trash, a bunch of useless trash. Lin Muyu endured her beating without saying a word. Perhaps she deserved it. Every imperial soldier had an undeniable responsibility for the fall of Lanyan City. On the side, Wei Chou's eyes were cold, and he shouted in a low voice, enough! Do you think we don't want to fight? Do you think we have fewer casualties? Do you know that the 17,000 soldiers of the Flying Mount Battalion have already been annihilated? Do you know that in order to save you, only 1,000 of the 20,000 soldiers of the Empire were left in the Longdan army camp? Do you know that the commander of the Imperial Guards, Qin Lei, and the commander of the Flying Mount Battalion, Chu Huaying, have already died for their country? Do you know that the person you are fighting has killed hundreds of Iha soldiers? Yes, you're all civilians. You can choose not to participate in the war, but Lanyan City is our home. No one can shirk the responsibility for the destruction of our home. We're soldiers, and it's our duty to fight for our country. But please don't humiliate our dignity as soldiers. The young girl stood there in a daze. After a long while, she sobbed and said, Can we still go home in the future? I will. Lin Muyu said softly, Lanyan City will definitely be recovered. It won't take long. Run as far as you can. When you hear the news that Lanyan City has been recovered, you can go home. Thank you, my lord. Let's go. The group of civilians stood up and left. At this moment, an old man holding a horsehead zither came over and said, My lord, the person you're looking for is Her Highness Qin Yin. This old man doesn't know her, but I saw a group of people just now. Among them, there was a woman with an extraordinary bearing. She didn't look like a woman from an ordinary family, and she was holding a zither that looked very expensive. A zither? Lin Muyu was stunned and asked, Where is she? She's in the forest to the east. It happened a few minutes ago. Okay, thank you, old man. Lin Muyu glanced at Wei Chou and the others and said, Full speed ahead. We found Xiaoyin. But more than a dozen people passed through the forest. Further ahead, there was indeed a group of refugees. There were about 200 people, and all of them were staggering. Lanyan City was huge, and the moment they escaped from Lanyan City, they were already exhausted. Yet, they still had to suffer the pursuit of countless Iha Kingdom cavalry. An old woman turned around and saw Lin Muyu and the others. She immediately shouted in terror, Oh no, the Iha Kingdom demons are here again. They're here again. However, no one seemed to be able to run. One of the middle-aged men held a shovel and said, Fight them to the death. Yes, fight them to the death. As Lin Muyu galloped over, the man with the shovel suddenly bent down and swept the front hooves of Jedi. However, Jedi was a fine horse bred in the endless forest, and he leaped to avoid it. Lin Muyu quickly turned back and whispered, "Don't attack, we're not Iha Kingdom soldiers." However, the sound of a sword being unsheathed came from behind. Lin Muyu suddenly turned back and saw the golden god-binding chain's martial soul hovering around the blade. He hurriedly lifted his cloak and shouted, "Xiao Yin, it's me." Qin Yin suddenly cried out, and the zither in her hands fell to the ground. She leaped into Lin Muyu's arms and cried loudly, but she didn't say a word. Lin Muyu hugged Qin Yin and gently stroked her back. After nearly 10 minutes, Qin Yin finally raised her head and said, "Yanlan City has fallen. The empire no longer exists. No, the empire will be rebuilt, and our home can be rebuilt, but we can't lose confidence." Lin Muyu looked at her deeply and said, "Xiao Yin, you must be strong. All of us are waiting for you to lead us to rebuild the empire." Qin Yin responded with a whimper, and her tears fell uncontrollably. "How is Yanlan City?" "All 4 sides of the city wall have fallen," Lin Muyu said in a trembling voice. "Chu Huayin died for the empire. Qin Lei also died for the empire." Qin Yin's body trembled slightly, and she looked in the direction of Yanlan City with teary eyes. "What happened to the empire? Brother Yu, do you have any news of Commander Feng Jixing?" Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "Xiao Yin, do you have any news of Chu and Chief Deacon Lei Hong?" "Chu Yao, do you know anything?" Qin Yin said, "Chu was originally with us, but in order to divert the attention of the volunteer soldiers, we got separated. Chief Deacon Lei Hong escorted the medical officers of the spiritual medicine department to seek refuge in the Holy Temple. Sister Chu Yao is among them, but I heard that Luo Lan, the God State expert, has already gone to the Holy Temple. I'm afraid Sister Chu Yao will be fine." Lin Muyu said blankly, but even she couldn't convince herself with these words. At this moment, Wei Chou suddenly said in a low voice, "Commander, there are people coming. They are from the Iha nation, and there are at least 1,000 cavalrymen. What should we do? If we leave, I'm afraid Princess Yin and the people will." "We won't leave," Lin Muyu said indifferently. "Even if we die, we must protect this group of people. But don't act rashly. We can't beat 1,000 cavalrymen." Lin Muyu turned her horse around and walked over to the Iha nation soldiers. There was a captaincy in this group, and when he saw Lin Muyu's military rank, he immediately cupped his fists and smiled. "So it's the general here. This subordinate is Captaincy Ding Shi of Sunset City. I wonder why the general is here, with a group of traitors of the empire?" "So it's General Ding Shi." Lin Muyu smiled and said, "I've been fighting non-stop these days, and my body is a little tired. When I chased here, I found a zither girl in the crowd who knows how to play music, so, I stayed behind to listen to her play a few songs." Ding Shi's gaze swept across Qin Yin in the crowd, and a trace of shock flashed across his face. Then he revealed an understanding expression. "The general has a good eye. The marshal has already ordered the massacre of the city. If the general likes this girl, you can take her with you. As for these traitors of the empire, this subordinate will take care of them for the general." "No need." Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, "Don't let the blood spoil the mood. General Ding, go by yourself. This group of people? I will take care of them myself later. Don't worry." "Yes, General." "Then this subordinate? This subordinate will also stay behind and listen to a song with the general before embarking on the journey." "Okay." Lin Muyu sat down cross-legged. Wei Chou, Xiahou sang, and the others also sat down. Under Lin Muyu's gaze, Qin Yin lifted her cloak to cover her face. She silently sat cross-legged on the grass. After straightening the strings of the zither, she slowly began to play. Her red lips moved slightly, and she sang the battle song of the Qin Empire, the Ballad of the Autumn Goose. Every word fell on the heart of every soldier of the empire like a drizzle. The world is vast, the mountains and rivers are vast, the cold moonlight shines into the battlefield, the rice river is green, The breeze is blowing, the warriors of the empire go to war together to kill all the jackals and wolves, a life of frivolity, who will comfort my wounds, the road home is already impossible to look forward to, only sighing at the high mountains and long rivers, unhindered in all directions. Forever defending the country, what harm is there for the soul to return to the ends of the earth? Broken battle robes, warriors, where will the autumn goose be buried? Please take my soul back to the hometown. When the song ended, Wei Chou, Xiahou sang, and the others all had tears in their eyes. Lin Muyu also felt a lump in her throat, thinking of the deaths of Chu Huayin, Qin Lei, and the others. Perhaps this song of Qin Yin could comfort these dead souls, as well as herself and Wei Chou, the remaining soldiers of the empire? Ding Shi's eyes also turned red. He turned over and mounted his horse, cupping his fists, and said, "General, I will take my leave. I hope that General will take care of yourself. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, there is still hope for the future." Lin Muyu was stunned. Could it be that Ding Shi already knew that the girl playing the zither was Qin Yin? It must be, but Ding Shi actually let them go. Not long after Ding Shi led his troops away, the sound of hooves came from the east again. A large group of people rushed out of the forest, holding the battle flag of the Longdan army camp in their hands. Although this group of people looked battered and exhausted, under the morning light, the empire's insignia on their chests glowed with a charming luster. It was Luo Yu and the others. "Milord!" Luo Yu also recognized Lin Muyu and the others. She immediately dismounted and knelt down, saying, "We didn't find Her Highness Ing. It's okay, I found her." Lin Muyu stretched out her hand and pointed behind her, saying, "Quickly come and greet Her Highness Ing." Immediately, more than 1,000 Longdan army camp mercenaries dismounted and knelt down on one knee, saying, "Your subordinates greet Her Highness Ing." Qin Yin was moved. She raised her hand, saying, "All of you rise." Lin Muyu said, "Time is of the essence, don't delay anymore. Wei Chou, Luo Yu, the two of you join forces and escort Her Highness Ing out of Lanyan City." "Milord, where are we going?" Luo Yu asked. "Dragon Rocky Mountain." Lin Muyu thought for a moment, then said, "After getting in touch with Cloud Province, escort Her Highness to Twilight Rain City. No matter what, Duke Yun is Her Highness' maternal grandfather, he will protect her." "Yes." Looking at the way Lin Muyu mounted the horse, Luo Yu was stunned. She asked, "Milord, where are you going?" "I'm going to look for Chu Yao." Lin Muyu's expression darkened, and she said, "Once Big Brother Chu Huayin is dead, I will be his only relative. I must find Chu Yao, otherwise, I will be letting down Big Brother Chu's spirit in heaven." "Your subordinate will go with you." "Don't be ridiculous, you guys escort Her Highness out of here. I can come and go freely by myself. You guys will only be a burden if you follow me." "Yes, milord." "You," Qin Yin suddenly called out softly. "What's the matter, Xiao Yin?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Although Qin Yin's heart was filled with unease, she smiled slightly and gave him her best look, saying, "The mountains are long and the rivers are far, we will meet again if fate allows it." "Yes, we will meet again." Lin Muyu nodded and rode away. Chapter 306. South of the Seven Seas Province, Jianfeng Ridge, a lone peak pierced the clouds. Banners fluttered at the foot of the mountain. The Jianfeng Ridge Barracks was also one of the 3 major garrisons in the Seven Seas Province. There were 70,000 soldiers stationed at the Jianfeng Ridge Barracks, and they surrounded and protected each other with the Seven Seas Pass. The real purpose was nothing more than to prevent Lanyan City from suddenly attacking. But now, the empire no longer existed, and this army seemed to have become a barrier against the iron hooves of the Iha nation. Thud, thud, amidst the sound of hooves, a snow-white steed galloped over from the official road. On the back of the steed was a beautiful young lady in a black cloak. Under the moonlight, her eyes were filled with anxiety and helplessness. When she arrived at the barracks gate, a group of soldiers immediately surrounded her and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Jianfeng Ridge Barracks?" Tang Xiaoxi flipped off the steed, and a beautiful face appeared in front of everyone. A 10-man squad leader immediately knelt down with his spear and said, Princess Xi. Immediately, everyone knelt down in a circle. Tang Xiaoxi looked at everyone indifferently and said, "Bring me to Commander Tang Zhen of the Jianfeng Ridge Barracks." Tang Zhen was promoted to the commander of the Jianfeng Ridge Barracks after the Battle of Demon Subduing Pass. He was considered one of the important generals of the Seven Seas city. When Tang Xiaoxi rode the steed to the front of the central tent, Tang Zhen had already come out to welcome her. He cupped his fists and said, "Subordinate Tang Zhen greets Princess Xi. May I know what brings Princess Xi to the Jianfeng Ridge Barracks?" "Commander Tang Zhen, please send troops to reinforce Lanyan City," Tang Xiaoxi said resolutely. Tang Zhen sighed and shook his head. "It's too late. Just this afternoon, we received news that Lanyan City has been breached. Her Highness Qin Yin is missing. The Flying Mount Camp and the Imperial Guards have been annihilated. It said that Chu Huayin and Qin Lei died in battle. Feng Jixing led 30,000 Imperial Guards out of the encirclement." "What?" Tang Xiaoxi retreated a few steps and fell onto her steed. This news was like a bolt from the blue, and she couldn't accept it. "Princess Xi, are you all right?" Tang Zhen asked with concern. Tang Xiaoxi felt a sharp pain in her chest. She clutched her chest and frowned. "Where's Mu? How's Lin Muyu?" Tang Zhen said, "Lin Muyu led 15,000 Longdan army camp soldiers to a bitter battle with Long Qianlin's main force outside the city's north. After killing 70,000 volunteers, the entire army was annihilated. Lin Muyu's whereabouts are unknown." Tang Xiaoxi felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She stood there dumbfounded, and tears streamed down her cheeks. "Princess Wei." Tang Zhen wanted to say something but stopped. "This morning, this general had received Duke Lan's letter and ordered me to hold back no matter what. Without his orders, I cannot even deploy a single soldier." Tang Xiaoxi took out a token from her bosom. It was an iron order of the Tang sect. She said, "Tang Zhen, I order you to immediately deploy 50,000 soldiers to Lanyan City with me. In addition, send the winged cavalry to the Demon Subduing Pass and send an order to Ling Hu Yen. Order her to deploy 100,000 Demon Clan troops to reinforce Lanyan City with us." "But, Princess, what? Do you want to disobey the iron order of the Tang sect? Are you still a general of the Tang family? Are you still a general of the Qin Empire?" I. Tang Zhen gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, sir." Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes looked at the stars in the southern sky. "It was dim there," she murmured. "Mu Shaoyin, you must hold on until I come. Don't die." In Lanyan City, there were ruins everywhere. It was a mess. Lin Muyu's nose was filled with the strong smell of blood. He rode slowly on Tongtian Street. On the street, there were piles of cold corpses, and flies were flying. Farther away, the soldiers of the Iha kingdom were holding a banquet. They surrounded a group of women in Lanyan City and roasted them with bonfires. They listened to the screams of the girls for fun. Lin Muyu clenched his fists, and the golden martial soul lingered on his arms. But he held back in the end. Yes, he had more important things to do. He could not die here. He quietly came to the holy temple, only to find that it was already on fire. The fire was blazing, just like the fire of Huoshi in the distance. The entire imperial capital was in a state of death. In front of the temple, there was a huge crater. Lin Muyu furrowed his brows. His spirit pulse technique detected traces of spiritual energy coming from the rubble. He dismounted from his horse and rummaged through the rubble. Finally, a pitch-black nether stone thumb ring appeared in front of him. This was the gift he gave to Lei Hong. Lei Hong had once said that he wouldn't throw this thumb ring away even if he died. A rather familiar aura filled the air. This was the aura of Lei Hong's power. But Lin Muyu could not feel Lei Hong's life force. He had already disappeared with the wind. Holding the thumb ring, the cold wind blew on his face. His body trembled slightly, and he felt an indescribable heartache. He slowly knelt in the rubble and curled his body in pain. He was like a shrimp, shivering miserably in the cold wind and crying softly. Lei Hong had died in battle, and the holy temple had been burned to the ground. But where was Chu Yao? After a long time, Lin Muyu stood up in the rubble again. Beside him, The Jedi warhorse snorted, waiting for its master's orders. This was indeed a good horse. It had not eaten for a few days, but it still had a lot of energy. Jumping on the horse, Lin Muyu came to the front of the spiritual medicine division. But he found that the door of the spiritual medicine division was already broken. He slowly urged the horse in, but there was no one. The main hall of the spiritual medicine division was filled with corpses. Almost all the pharmacists had been killed, but there was no corpse of Chu Yao. "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Suddenly, a voice came from the medicine cabinet in the corner. Lin Muyu walked forward and said indifferently, "Come out." But the person was still trembling and begging, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." In a fit of rage, Lin Muyu raised her sword and slashed the cabinet open. Behind her was a man hugging his knees, trembling uncontrollably. His shoulder was covered in blood, as if he had been slashed by a sword, and he looked rather familiar. It was Luo Bin, the son of Minister Luo Xing. "Luo Bin?" Lin Muyu looked at him coldly and asked, "Why are you hiding here?" Luo Bin also recognized Lin Muyu, and hurriedly crawled over to hug the front leg of the Jedi warhorse. "Lin Muyu, take me away, take me away. I don't want to die, I don't want to die." Lin Muyu looked at him in disgust. "I'm asking you, where did Chu Yao go?" "Chiao? Chu Yao left with Qin Yan and the rest. They are being chased, to the south gate." "South gate?" Lin Muyu snorted coldly, turned his horse around, and left. People like Luo Bin should be left to fend for themselves. The night passed quickly, and when Lin Muyu arrived at the south gate, he found that there were only some Iha country guards here. He didn't see Qin Yan, Chu Yao, and the rest. "Milord, are you patrolling at night?" a guard asked respectfully. Lin Muyu didn't speak, but the spirit pulse technique transmitted a threatening power he had never felt before. A vast domain descended from the sky, and he hurriedly raised his head to see a person walking through the air, and a palm filled with divine power came crashing down. It came too quickly. Lin Muyu hurriedly leaped off the horse's back with falling star steps. However, she only heard a cry of agony. The Jedi warhorse had been smashed into pieces just like that. Her heart ached. At the same time, she raised her head and saw that the person was floating in the air. His golden robes fluttered in the wind as he looked at her with a pair of eyes filled with disdain. "Luolan, it was you who killed Great Deacon Lei Hong?" Lin Muyu said coldly. Luolan smiled faintly. "It was me, but, compared to Lei Hong, I want to know how capable you, one of the 4 heroes of Lan Yen, are to be put in such an important position by that old dog Qin Jin." "Bastard!" Lin Muyu knew that he couldn't escape, and could only fight with his life on the line. He swung his blade, and increased his battle energy to 100%. With a shout, the blood in his body boiled, and the golden gourd martial soul's light shot into the sky. For a moment, the world spun, and the universe reversed. It was as if all the power in the world could be used by him. 6 glorious heavenly calamity. "Yo, fighting with your life on the spot?" Luo Lan smiled faintly, and slowly opened his hand. The demon blood saber's light shot into the sky, and its aura did not lose to the 6 glorious heavenly calamity. Lin Muyu's heart went cold. Under Luo Lan's godly state domain, it was already difficult for her to raise her battle energy. Forcibly activating the 6 glorious heavenly calamity brought her endless pain, and her body felt as if it would explode at any moment. At this moment, the voice of the 7 luminaries demon emperor came from the depths of her high. "Heavens! You want to fight with a god? You lunatic!" Lin Muyu roared. "Do I have any other choice? Help me." The 7 luminaries demon emperor sighed sorrowfully. "I owe you my whole life. This time, I'm really going to be dragged down by you. It's a pity that I've just cultivated a complete godhead." Sigh. Suddenly, the 7 luminaries demon emperor let out a shrill cry, and immediately, Lin Muyu felt strands of divine power entering her high. The strands of golden warmth quickly flowed into the long sword, and increased the power of the 6 glorious heavenly calamity. "Come on." Luo Lan looked at him as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and laughed heartily. "That old dog Qin Jin has sealed the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning generals, so I'll just kill them all." The demon blood saber met the dragon spirit sword that was strengthened by the golden gourd. Boom! There was an explosion, and the entire South City Gate was once again corroded. Even many of the Iha Nation soldiers who could not dodge in time were swallowed up by the divine power. The demon blood saber emitted a strong devouring power, causing the divine power in Lin Muyu's body to quickly dissipate. This sixth glorious heavenly calamity was defeated. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lin Muyu felt a burning pain in her shoulder. The demon blood saber's cold light had actually cut into her body, and blood flowed out. Ah! He roared angrily, and continued to press down the dragon spirit sword with all his might. With a bang, it slashed through the air at Luo Lan's righteous chi, but at the same time, the power of the sixth glorious heavenly calamity left the blade. Light-splitting slash. Luo Lan let out a muffled groan, and looked at the sword wound on his chest in disbelief. Blood gushed out wildly. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu suffered an even stronger backlash, and with a miserable howl, she crashed into the broken wall of the city. At the same time, with a roar, Ecatosaurus penetrated through the plane and pounced at Luo Lan with its claws and fangs bared. Evil creature, die! Luo Lan's 5 fingers were like claws, and with one strike, it pierced through Ecatosaurus's head and directly crushed the crystal core. Ecatosaurus, dead. This attack did not stop. Luo Lan looked at the heavily injured Lin Muyu with a ferocious expression, and with absolute crushing strength, he suddenly stabbed his 5 claws into Lin Muyu's chest. Blood spurted out, and he cackled, "You are just a piece of trash. What right do you have to think that you can change the laws of this world? Pa, I am a god, only I can set the laws of this world." The light in Lin Muyu's eyes was the light of destruction and despair. He looked at Luo Lan and lightly said, "Kill me. If this world cannot destroy me, then I will definitely destroy this world." Blood flowed, and Luo Lan grabbed Lin Muyu's heart and directly crushed it. That wisp of spiritual sense finally dissipated, and Lin Muyu could no longer see anything. Emptiness. Everything returned to emptiness. Was this the feeling of death? Ecatosaurus's corpse lay quietly next to its master's corpse. The red crystal scales on its body rapidly melted into blood, enveloping Lin Muyu's body, and condensed into dark red ice crystals. In the next moment, the ice crystals crazily devoured everything around them, and even Luo Lan was forced to take a few steps back. In the blink of an eye, Ecatosaurus's corpse had become a giant ice crystal with a radius of 10 meters, lying in the rubble of the south gate of Yanlan City. Vaguely, a human figure could be seen lying in the red ice crystal, motionless, without a sound. Lin Muyu, dead in battle. End of the first volume. Falling Lilies and Falling Lilies. Notes: Falling lilies and falling lilies, hun, refers to flowers falling from trees, some falling on mats, and some falling into manure pits. It means that people are born unequal, some born in the royal family, some born in the poor. Many people are born with different responsibilities than others, and Qin Yin's name comes from this idiom. Qin Yin is like a flower on a tree, falling into the royal family, but also has to bear a completely different fate. Next, I welcome everyone to continue reading the second volume, Silver Flowers. A new chapter in history is about to open. Chapter 307. The next day, the news of Lin Muyu's death spread in Lanyan City. The soldiers of the Iha kingdom celebrated with each other. To them, Lin Muyu was like a mark of death. What kind of person could kill the 70,000 elite soldiers of the Iha kingdom with only 15,000 soldiers? With the death of Lin Muyu, the Longdan army camp was gone, and the nightmare of the Iha kingdom was gone. On April 15, 7731 of the Empire calendar, Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan City, died in battle. At this point, no one in Lanyan City dared to resist the soldiers of the Iha kingdom. The Qin Empire was officially destroyed on this day. On the same day, the 12 provinces of the empire fell into the hands of the Iha kingdom, except for Qihai province and Yunzhong province. The Iha kingdom was officially established, and the capital was set in Bailing City in the Lingnan. The people elected Qin Yi, the prince of Jinan, as the commander-in-chief, to command the world. 3 days later, Qihai City and Muyu City sent letters of submission at the same time. Tang Lan and Su Muyun had already recognized Qin Yi as the commander-in-chief. At this point, the world was unified and belonged to the Iha kingdom. Dozens of miles west of the Tianming Mountain, there was a camp with a flag flying in the air. This was the only place in the empire where the Qin family's purple Yinhua flag was still flying. Imperial Army. In the main tent, Feng Jixing looked haggard. There was no trace of his former high spirits. So what if he had 30,000 imperial soldiers? After all, he couldn't stop the collapse of the whole empire. Luo Lai opened the tent and stepped in. He said, "Commander, they have already set up camp 10 miles away. Long Qianlin has personally led the troops." "The troops? How many troops?" Feng Jixing looked up at him. Luo Lai cupped his fists and said, "A total of 300,000 troops." Feng Jixing felt a chill in his heart. He murmured, "What other news?" Luo Lai said, "Chu Huayin and Qin Lei died in battle. In addition, I received news this morning that Lady Lin Muyu." "What happened to you?" Feng Jixing shuddered. "Master Lin Muyu was killed by Luo Lan 3 days ago. He self-destructed at the south gate of Yanlan City. Many people saw his body frozen in purple ice." Feng Jixing's fist slowly landed on the table. A trickle of blood flowed down his chin and landed on the white dossier. He did not dare to raise his head, nor did he want to. Luo Lai continued, "Long Qianlin wants to see you." "I won't see him." Feng Jixing lowered his head and said, "Pass down my order to the entire army. We'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Prepare for battle." Luo Lai wanted to say something but hesitated. After pausing for a few seconds, he said, "Commander, the empire is no longer here. There is no news of Her Highness Ying. It is said that Great Deacon Lei Hong and Chu have been killed by Luo Lan. Is there any meaning in us persisting like this? Why don't we let Long Qianlin come to the main tent and listen to what he has to say? Long Qianlin killed Chu Huayin and still dares to come see me?" Feng Jixing said angrily, "Isn't he afraid that I will chop him into pieces?" "Sir," Feng Jixing took a deep breath. He seemed to have aged a lot and said, "Let him come." Not long after, a flying general entered the Imperial Army's camp. It was Long Qianlin. "Dismount," Luo Lai shouted in a low voice. Long Qianlin raised his hands and smiled faintly. "I didn't even bring a weapon. There is no need to be so nervous." Long Qianlin's expression was still calm when he entered the main tent. It was only when he saw Feng Jixing's blood-red eyes that he finally felt a deep chill. "Are you here to die?" Feng Jixing said indifferently as he wiped his saber. Long Qianlin turned around and sat down on a seat. "General Feng, the empire has lost. Are you still unwilling to accept this fact?" "Accept?" Feng Jixing laughed wildly. "You destroyed everything I had, and now you want me to accept it? You killed my Feng Jixing's brothers, you killed my Feng Jixing's emperor, and you want me to accept it? Long Qianlin, you bastard, how can I accept it? You are a general of the empire. You helped a tiger and slaughtered the people of Lanyan City. Aren't you afraid of retribution?" Long Qianlin sat there dejectedly and said calmly, "Why don't you think about the pain of my parents and siblings being executed by Qin Jin when you said such words? Qin Jin killed my family, so why can't I kill his family? The massacre of Lanyan City is not something I, Long Qianlin, can control. I'm just a general, not a marshal." "Your Iha nation," Feng Jixing choked and said, "Your Iha nation calls us the hawks and dogs of the empire, but aren't you, Long Qianlin, the hawks and dogs of Iha nation too?" Long Qianlin was slightly taken aback. "General Feng, are you determined to fight? But can the 30,000 imperial guards be a match for the 300,000 soldiers of Iha nation?" Long Qianlin's eyes were filled with coldness. "Do you know that I've prepared 5,000 barrels of black beech oil and enough fire starters? Once the battle starts, I'll use catapults to throw the black beech oil into the Imperial Guard's camp. I'll fire arrows randomly and set up an ambush with an arrow formation. Perhaps I can kill all 30,000 of your imperial guards without losing a single soldier. Feng Jixing's heart turned cold. He said angrily, Long Qianlin, what exactly do you want? Long Qianlin stood up, cupped his fists, and said, I know that General Feng is a benevolent general. You won't let the 30,000 imperial guards die in vain, so I, Long Qianlin, am willing to use my head as a guarantee. As long as General Feng is willing to surrender and disarm the 30,000 imperial guards, I'm willing to guarantee your safety. Not a single one of these 30,000 imperial guards will die. Even if General Feng isn't afraid of death, do you not care about the life and death of these 30,000 imperial guards? Feng Jixing sat there in pain. His face was filled with disappointment. After a long time, he looked up at Luo Lai and said, Gather all the Kiliarchs and have them vote. If more than half of them are willing to surrender, we will surrender. Luo Lai nodded. Feng Jixing looked at Long Qianlin and said coldly, If you lie to me, Feng Jixing, I promise that I'll personally chop off your head. Remember that. Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, Yes. At dusk, the Imperial Guard's army surrendered and handed their weapons and horses to the Iha country people. Everyone set up camp in the Fire Badger Valley not far away. Feng Jixing was invited into the main tent of Iha country and was personally received by General Qin Yi. The tent was brightly lit and there was plenty of wine and meat. It wasn't something the Imperial Guard's camp could compare to. Qin Yi looked at Feng Jixing, one of the 7 generals of the empire, and cupped his fists. Qin Yi greets General Feng. Feng Jixing nodded his head. I greet King Zhennan. I would like to ask you a question. Qin Yi laughed out loud. A bright light shot out from Feng Jixing's eyes and he said, How did His Majesty die? Are you talking about Qin Jin? Qin Yi smiled and said softly, I personally strangled him to death in the shallow water. Feng Jixing's expression was dejected, the energy of the purple lightning flame wolf wrapped around his fists. But at that moment, a cold voice spread out from behind him. Feng Jixing, if you want to attack, then your 30,000 Imperial Guards army will die with you. The one who spoke was Lulon, the only god here. Feng Jixing's fists loosened and he cupped his fists. I am not feeling well, so I will return to camp first. Your Highness, please excuse me. Qin Yi nodded his head and smiled. General Feng, I won't send you off. Right when Feng Jixing rushed back to Fire Badger Valley in a daze, he noticed that flames surged into the sky. The Imperial Guard's camp had already turned into a purgatory. Numerous Imperial Guard's army soldiers cried out miserably in the flames. Those who wanted to charge out were quickly killed by the Iha country archers. In an instant, Feng Jixing's eyes turned red and he pulled out his wind cutter blade. Bastard! The blade swept across, and the heads of a few archers flew into the sky. Feng Jixing looked at the Imperial Guards who were howling miserably in the fire. He was like a frenzied beast as he cried loudly and slashed at the group of volunteer soldiers like a madman. He didn't care about the wounds on his body at all, but it was useless. How many people could he kill alone? As for the Imperial Guard's army, 30,000 of them would become corpses tonight. In the forest not far away, Long Qianlin's hands were tied behind his back. He was tied to a tree and the flames shone on his ashen white face. Tears flowed down his face as he shouted, Ji Yao, why did you lie to me? Why did you lie to me? Ji Yao's gaze was ice cold. General Long, you are one of the founding fathers of Iha country. Remember this forever. If Feng Jixing's 30,000 Imperial Guards army doesn't die, Iha country won't be stable. Bastard, you bastard! Long Qianlin roared, someone untie me. Save them. Hurry up and save them. But none of the soldiers dared to move. Ji Yao said coldly, Long Qianlin, I'm not as good as you when it comes to commanding troops and fighting battles. But when it comes to making decisions, you're just a hothead. Learn well. I brought these brave soldiers from Lingnan. Do you think they will listen to you, a temporary general, instead of me? Long Qianlin looked powerlessly at the flames in the distance. It was chaos there. Miserable cries mixed with the sound of the wind. Tears streamed down his face as he roared at the sky. Feng Jixing, I, Long Qianlin, can't repay this debt of blood even if I'm cut into 1,000 pieces. Throughout the night, when the flames were extinguished, the soldiers' cries could no longer be heard. Feng Jixing's armor was badly damaged by the flames. He sat on a pile of corpses in a daze. The wind cutter in his hand was nowhere to be seen. He stared blankly into the distance and murmured, "Bastard, bastard, bastard." He slowly stood up and found his wind slasher saber. Then he began to dig the soil. After digging a pit, he dragged a few corpses of the Imperial army that had been burnt beyond recognition and buried them. He repeated this process repeatedly, as if he was a machine that did not know fatigue, until the web between his thumb and forefinger split open and blood flowed down the wind slasher saber. Amidst the lingering smoke, Long Qianlin couldn't bear to watch anymore. He turned to the soldiers beside him and said, "Send him food every day. I'm afraid that if we don't bury all 30,000 Imperial Guards army corpses, Feng Jixing won't be willing to say another word to anyone." "Yes, General." At this moment, a messenger galloped over from afar. His face was filled with shock as he said, "General, something bad has happened." "What's the matter?" "A large number of Qihai City and Demon Race troops have appeared outside the southern city of Lanyan City. There are a total of 150,000 of them. They seem to be led by Tang Xiaoxi and Tang Jin from Qihai City. The commander has ordered me to summon you back to command the brave soldiers to resist the enemy." "Resist the enemy?" A chill flashed across Long Qianlin's eyes as he said, "Does Iha country still want me, Long Qianlin, to serve them?" Chapter 308. Dong, Dong, Dong. The sound of war drums echoed in the south of Lanyan City. The 100,000 demon clan troops and the 50,000 soldiers of Qihai City were lined up. Their equipment was in place in an orderly manner, and the war was about to begin. Tang Xiaoxi was wearing a black cloak with a golden-purple flower emblem on her chest. Her beautiful eyes were looking at the civilian corpses piled up like mountains in front of her, as well as the southern city wall that was still being repaired after the collapse, where Lin Muyu had died. Tang Xiaoxi's shoulders trembled slightly. She closed her eyes, and tears slid down her snow-white face. She gently raised her long sword and said in a low voice, "Prepare for war. An eye for an eye." Beside her, Ling Huyen was riding a fine horse. Her eyes flashed with a strange look as she said, "Your Highness, the city wall of Lanyan City is already riddled with holes. It's not enough to be a natural stronghold. Let's send the Serpent Men army to charge first. In such a terrain, it's impossible for Iha country to form a cavalry phalanx. The terrain of rocks and weeds is our world." Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said to Tang Jin, "General Tang Jin, prepare the bow and arrow array and the spear array. If the cavalry of Iha country comes out, you will resist them. The demon clan is not good at facing cavalry. You should know that." "Yes, Your Highness." Tang Jin cupped his fists, his eyes stern. The sound of war drums became louder and louder. A large number of serpent men came to the front of the battle array, spitting out their blood-red tongues. Their bodies were covered with scales, and they held steel sabers in their hands. Their brown eyes were full of mania and greed as they looked at Lanyan City. The serpent men were warlike by nature, and this was an excellent opportunity for them to kill. Facing the thousands of troops outside the southern city, the owner of Lanyan City, the army of Iha country, was moved. Many soldiers had never seen the demon clan. Now seeing the serpent men and lizard men brandishing their sabers, they could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Qin Yi, wearing a golden battle robe, stood majestically on a complete section of the city wall. Beside him was a group of Iha country's civil and military officials. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Didn't Qihai City already declare its allegiance to Iha country? Why did Tang Jin bring Qihai City's army to invade again?" Jiao cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Commander, everything is because of Tang Xiaoxi. This princess of Seven Seas City used the Tang Sect's Iron Order to forcibly mobilize the 50,000 troops under Tang Jin. In addition, in the Battle of Demon Subduing Pass, Lin Muyu helped her establish some kind of contract with the demon race. Therefore, Tang Xiaoxi possesses the entire demon race's military force. This is something we did not expect. Bastard. Qin Yi punched the battlement, causing dust to fly up. He said with an ice-cold gaze, "It's Lin Muyu again. This Lin Muyu really haunts us. Fortunately, Senior Immortal Luolan killed her, otherwise. Humph, I'm afraid it won't be so easy for us to enter Lanyan City. By the way, has Senior Immortal left?" Ji Yao said, "We lost a total of 4 Sacred Peak experts this time. Senior Immortal is very angry and left North Ridge Province yesterday morning. Before he left, he ordered us to build a palace at the foot of Sacred Peak with gold, silver, diamond, glass, and jade. I'm afraid this will waste a lot of our national resources." Qin Yi smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter. As long as Luolan is here, our country will not be lost. But right now, Tang Xiaoxi has challenged us and the demon race is about to attack the city. Why hasn't Long Qianlin returned yet?" Ji Yao pursed his lips and said, "The commander reported that Long Qianlin was injured when he burned the 30,000 Imperial Guards last night. In the morning he had a high fever, so he can't come to command the army." "Humph," Qin Yi frowned and said, "Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used on a single day. He actually fell sick at this time. Long Qianlin is after all not someone our Lingnan generals can compare to. Ji Yao, there are 100 generals in our Yihe country. Long Qianlin is not the only one who can lead the army to war. You recommend someone to kill their way out of the city and drive back the demon race army." Ji Yao cupped his fists and said, "How about Great General LV Zhao? LV Zhao is from Lingnan and is well versed in the art of war. He is also a general you have personally trained. He can be of great use." Qin Yi nodded, his eyes revealing a trace of regret. "It's a pity that my great general Lin Yu was killed by that scoundrel Lin Muyu. Otherwise, with Lin Yu's ability, why would he be afraid of a motley crew of 150,000? Pass down my order. LV Zhao will be the main general and order him to stop Tang Xiaoxi's army. No mistakes are allowed." "Yes." Ji Yao raised his head and said, "Great General, I just received news that the Empire's remnant, Qin Yin, has been escorted to Dragon Rocky Mountain by the Empire's lackeys from the Longdan army camp. Currently, 3,000 troops from Sunset City are surrounding Dragon Rocky Mountain. What do you think?" "Qin Yin." Qin Yi clenched his teeth and said, "Evil must be eradicated. As long as Qin Yin is alive, she will be thinking of restoring the empire. This is a disaster for all the people in the world. Ji Yao, choose another general and lead 100,000 troops to attack Dragon Rocky Mountain." 100,000? Ji Yao was stunned. "Great General, if we split another 100,000 troops, we will only have 200,000 to defend Yulan City. I'm afraid we may not be able to quickly defeat the 150,000 troops led by Tang Xiaoxi." Qin Yi's eyes were cold. A mere Dragon Rocky Mountain can be trampled into powder in the blink of an eye. These 100,000 volunteers will destroy Dragon Rocky Mountain, kill Qin Yin, and then return to Yulan City to attack Tang Xiaoxi's army from the rear. Naturally, they will be able to achieve complete victory. We must be fast. Currently, we still don't know their movements, especially Su Muyun. He controls 250,000 elite troops from Cloud Middle Province and is already the most powerful feudal lord in the world. Pay attention to Su Muyun's movements at all times. Yes. There's one more thing. Your Highness, is there anything else? Ji Yao asked. Qin Yi narrowed his eyes and said, Feng Jixing? Is he willing to pledge allegiance to us? Feng Jixing? Ji Yao couldn't help but smile. A defeated general isn't enough for Great General to think so highly of him, right? A defeated general? Qin Yi smiled. At the foot of Heaven's Wall Mountain, Feng Jixing defeated the Heaven's Core army with 3 retreats and 3 advances, rendering them powerless to fight back. He could even contend with our 200,000 troops with 30,000 Imperial Guards. How could such a person be a defeated general? If it wasn't for Qin Jin's muddle-headedness, with Feng Jixing's ability, I'm afraid he would have long since become the #1 general in the world. Ji Yao was startled and said, But Great General, We've already killed all 30,000 Imperial Guards last night. We've even killed Luo Lai and the other generals that Feng Jixing relied on the most. I'm afraid that within a year and a half, Feng Jixing won't pledge allegiance to Iha country. Sigh. Qin Yi sighed. Feng Jixing is a ferocious tiger. If we can use him, use him. If we can't, get rid of him as soon as possible. Oh right, that huge purple crystal. Have you broken it? No, it's very hard and invulnerable. I can faintly see Lin Muyu's silhouette inside. Although he's already dead, but... No buts. Qin Yi's gaze was stern as he said, take advantage of the night and order the convoy to secretly transport this purple crystal out of Lanyan City. Find a desolate and filthy place to bury it. I never want to see this person again. The sound of the war drums grew more intense as a large number of Iha country troops marched out of Lanyan City. Many of their weapons were still stained with blood, the blood of the civilians. The 5 million civilians in Lanyan City were not so easy to kill. The Iha country had only massacred less than a third of Lanyan City's territory. However, the civilians who had not been trampled by the iron hooves were merely rabbits in cages, waiting for the butcher's knife to fall at any time. Perhaps, the fact that Tang Xiaoxi had led the demon race to counterattack Lanyan City had actually saved these people's lives. Seeing the Iha country troops leave the city, Tang Jin grasped his weapon excitedly and said with a smile, "Princess, they're ready for battle. You're about to start the war." Tang Xiaoxi narrowed her eyes. They're all infantry and shield soldiers. What are the Iha country thinking? Do they think that they can defeat the demon race army with wooden shields and padeos? Ling Huyen smiled slightly and said, Your Highness, can the serpent men attack now? Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, General Tang Jin, you're well versed in the art of war. You'll be in command. Tang Jin cupped his fists and said, The terrain inside the city is complex and ever-changing. Moreover, we don't know what's going on inside Lanyan City, so the Serpentmen army can only fight the Iha country troops outside the city. When they reach the broken walls, they'll immediately turn back. Just like that, we'll continuously consume the Iha country's troops and rations. Lanyan City will return to us sooner or later. Ling Huyen smiled slightly and loudly ordered the Serpentmen general in the demon race's language. The Serpentman general held an iron spear in his hand and roared loudly. Immediately, the majestic army of tens of thousands of Serpentmen immediately charged out. These terrifying Serpentmen had now become the main force in reclaiming the human empire's capital. History seemed to be playing tricks on everyone. A fine drizzle fell on the streets of Muyu City, moistening the city streets. The earth was recovering and spring had returned. The peach and pear blossoms in Muyu City had already bloomed. Su Muyun held a heavy sword in his hand and wore a suit of armor. His face was pale as he raised his head to look at the pear tree in the courtyard. He muttered, Spring is here. The snow on the ancient cloud path should have melted by now, right? Beside him, Su Yu's expression was downcast as she said, Father, do you still want to wait? If we wait any longer, I'm afraid that Dragon Rocky Mountain will be breached. Shao Yin, the last bloodline of the empire, will disappear. Su Muyun smiled faintly and said, Don't worry, Dragon Rocky Mountain won't be breached so easily. Shao Yin is very strong, much stronger than her father. Su Yu revealed a puzzled expression and said, Father, Muyu City refused to send troops, causing Lanyan City to fall. A large number of the empire's soldiers died in battle, and Shao Yin narrowly escaped death. How can you bear to see this happen? How can I bear to see this happen? Su Muyun looked at the sky and said, I, Su Muyun, only have one son, but he was killed by my son-in-law. Tell me, how can the heavens bear to do this to me, Su Muyun? Qin Jin secretly ordered the traitor Zhang Santong to shoot Hu Tianning and force Xiang Yu to kill Hu Tianning. Did he think that all this was done without anyone knowing? If Lanyan City is in trouble today, it is only because of Qin Jin. Father, Su Yu silently placed her hand on the hilt of her sword and said, I just want to know, When are we going to fight our way out of the cloud ancient road and rescue Xiao Yin? Chapter 309. Pile up the stones and save the arrows. Luo Yu's hoarse roar came from the walls of Dragon Rocky Mountain. His face was stained with blood, and his battle robe had turned from white to gray. A stone wall that was at least 10 meters high was piled up at the mountain gate. Only such a defense could withstand the attack of the Empire's army. Looking from afar, there was a sea of people at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain, and the flags of Iha Nation were raised high. Luo Yu couldn't help but shiver. He exchanged a glance with Wei Chou, but no one knew what to say. I wonder how the commander is doing. Wei Chou held the demon-devouring bow, a trace of worry on his face. Luo Yu patted his shoulder and smiled. Brother Wei Chou, don't worry. The commander is blessed by the heavens, nothing will happen to him. Sigh. The brothers we arranged at the foot of the mountain have already moved up. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a lack of information. In my opinion, Brother Wei Chou, you can be considered a general with both the pen and the sword. Why don't you join our Longdan army camp and become a dragon-level commander? You don't have to return to the Imperial Army. Wei Chou smiled bitterly. The Empire is gone. How can there be any Imperial Army? To Wei Chou, it's enough as long as I can protect your highness. Alright, then it's decided. You join the Longdan army camp. From today onwards, we will be brothers who will live and die together. At this moment, a group of people galloped over from the mountain. Qin Yin was wearing the plain clothes of a village girl. She dismounted and climbed up the small stone fortress. Beside her, Chu Yao and Qin Yen guarded her. Your Highness, be careful. Chu Yao looked at the foot of the mountain and said, they have many archers. Qin Yin nodded, I'm fine. Sister Chu Yao, you have to be careful too. Qin Yen, protect Sister Chu Yao. Yes, Your Highness. Qin Yen held his shield and guarded in front of Chu Yao, like a god of war protecting her. How's the situation? Qin Yen asked. Luo Yu cupped her fists and said, Your Highness, they've sent at least 50,000 troops, perhaps even more. They've surrounded Rocky Dragon Mountain, most likely intending to take it down in one fell swoop. However, it won't be that easy. Back then, when Lord Commander took down Rocky Dragon Mountain, we had already begun to reinforce it. Even the back mountain has our archers and sentries. The only passageway is easy to defend and hard to attack. Qin Yin nodded and asked, Is there any news about Big Brother Yu? No. Luo Yu shook her head and said, We've already lost contact with Yen Orchid City and even the entire continent. All the messenger birds have been lost or flown away. But don't worry, Your Highness. The Lord is blessed and will definitely be fine. Qin Yin's bright eyes were filled with endless worry as she looked at the Iha Kingdom troops at the foot of the mountain. She couldn't help but bite her red lips and said, Perhaps, if I go down the mountain and hand myself over to the Iha Kingdom, the 1,000 troops in the Longdan army camp can still be preserved? No. Luo Yu, Qin Yen, Wei Chou and the others all knelt down. Luo Yu raised her head to look at Qin Yin and said, Your Highness, you're the only bloodline of the Qin family. We've risked our lives for the Empire. If anything happens to Your Highness, how are we going to answer to Lord Lin Muyu? If we lose Your Highness, we'd rather commit suicide on Rocky Dragon Mountain. Qin Yen also nodded. Yes, my royal father and His Majesty were both killed by the Iha Kingdom. If I don't take revenge, I'm not human. Qin Yin looked at everyone silently and murmured, It's the Empire's fortune that the Qin family can receive such support from everyone. Get up. However, we've been guarding the mountain blindly and don't know the situation at the foot of the mountain. I'm afraid we won't be able to hold out for long. Chu Yao said, Your Highness, don't worry. There's enough food and water on Rocky Dragon Mountain. It shouldn't be a problem to hold out for a month. And in a month's time, your maternal grandfather should know the situation here and send reinforcements. I hope so. Qin Yin didn't dare to hope too much for her maternal grandfather's reinforcements. Her eyes flickered with a misty light as she said, I only hope that nothing happens to Big Brother Yu. Be careful, another wave of attacks is coming. Luo Yu narrowed her eyes and looked down the mountain. Archers, get ready. Wei Chou raised his hand and pulled out an arrow from his quiver. They've sent heavy shield bearers. Everyone, put on the white diamond arrowheads. The mountain path can only accommodate 20 people at most. We'll kill as many as they come up. Everyone nodded. At the foot of the mountain, the Iha nation's shield bearers had arrived. However, after being baptized by the white diamond arrowheads at the mountain gate, they were immediately killed. The white diamond arrowheads were extremely sharp and could pierce through heavy shields. In the blink of an eye, the mountain gate was filled with corpses. More than 500 volunteer soldiers had died on the mountain slope. Be careful of the spears. Wei Chou suddenly lowered his head. Immediately, dozens of spears flew over his head. Luo Yu chuckled and said, "They've retreated." As expected, after a round of spears, the volunteer soldiers didn't even have time to clean up the corpses before retreating. Open the gate and pull out the white diamond arrowheads from the corpses. Save them. Yes. When a group of Longdan army camp soldiers were cleaning up the white diamond arrowheads, Chu Yao suddenly frowned. She sniffed and said, "Do you guys smell something strange?" "Yes." Qin Yi nodded and said, "It's the smell of oil." Wei Chou was startled and said, "It's the black beech oil. Damn it, are these bastards planning to use fire to attack?" "I think it's right." Luo Yu pointed into the distance and said, "Look, the catapults are already up the mountain. Our place will soon become a sea of fire, despicable southern barbarians." Wei Chou clenched his teeth. If the Iha kingdom used a catapult to hurl the flaming black beech oil up the mountain, the consequences could be imagined. Long Qianlin had used this vicious trick to force Feng Jixing to hand over the military power of the imperial army, and now the Iha kingdom had used the same trick again. At the foot of the mountain, more than 10 catapults were set up in a crisscross pattern. At the same time, the soldiers carried over barrels of black beech oil. On the side, Achillearcha's face was full of pride as he said with a smile, "Long Qianlin used 300,000 troops and still couldn't catch Qin Yin. The result is still up to me, Xiaoren." At this moment, a group of people charged over from afar. Sitting on a warhorse was a general with 2 gold stars on his belt. It was Sunset City's captaincy Ding Shi. Ding Shi slowly spurred his horse over and looked at the barrels of black beech oil. He said indifferently, "What are you doing?" Xiaoren cupped his fists and said, "General Ding, the remnants of the Empire on Dragon Rocky Mountain are extremely tenacious. We've been attacking for 3 days and still haven't been able to take them down. Therefore, this general has decided to attack with fire so that they can't defend themselves. This way, our heavy cavalry will be able to trample over Dragon Rocky Mountain." "Impudent." Ding Shi raised his eyebrows and said, "General Xiaoren, let me ask you. Who is the commander of the 70,000 troops besieging Dragon Rocky Mountain?" Xiaoren was taken aback and said respectfully, "Of course it's General Ding Shi. You are the commander of the Imperial Commander-in-Chief." "That's good." Ding Shi said coldly, "Before I give the order to burn Dragon Rocky Mountain, no one is allowed to attack with fire. Move these nuisances away and send a large number of soldiers to surround Dragon Rocky Mountain. As long as we cut off their water source, we can take down the Longdan army camp without shedding a single drop of blood. After the northern expedition, our Lingnan soldiers have already lost nearly 150,000 men. We can't afford any more casualties." Xiaoren smiled like a villain and said, "It's a blessing for our army that great general is compassionate towards our soldiers. This general will do it right away. We will definitely surround Dragon Rocky Mountain so that not even a fly can fly out." Ding Shi nodded and looked at Xiaoren's departing figure. His eyes flickered and he placed a hand on the cold hilt of his sword. He murmured softly, "General Lin Muyu, I respect you as a hero, but Ding Shi really doesn't know how I can help you and how I can stop the war in the world." In the spring, the sun was already extremely hot, scorching the earth with no regard for anything else. It was as if all the battles on earth had nothing to do with it. In reality, it did seem to have nothing to do with it. After nightfall, starlight shone on the earth, nourishing all living things. This originally peaceful land was bathed in blood. The villages around Lanyan City were also bathed in blood. Cries of anguish filled the land and the corpses of civilians were everywhere. Many wild dogs and hungry wolves had already scurried out of the borders of dragon-seeking forest, dragging and devouring the corpses of the massacred civilians. Gulp. Gulp. A total of 8 chariots joined together, pulling a huge amethyst rock. The rock was wrapped in black cloth and tied up with ropes. A troop of 1,000 cavalrymen was used to escort the rock. Under the starlight, the caravan entered the dragon-seeking forest in a straight line, all the way to a call deep in the mountains. The Chiliarch leading the troops suddenly frowned. "What's that smell?" "It's the stench." A centurion pointed at the call and said, "Sir, look, there's a dead python here. It's been rotting for a long time, its bones are already showing." The Chiliarch rode forward and pinched his nose as he looked at the python's head, only to find 10 neatly arranged golden lines. He could not help but frown. A 10,000-year-old python is actually dead. What a pity. Men, dig its head and see if there's any spiritual stones. A few cavalrymen walked forward and checked. No, it's empty. The Chiliarch's gaze turned cold. Men, bury the purple crystal in this huge pit. A dead man and a dead snake buried together? It's quite a contrast. Sir, you're wise. Everyone hurriedly used ropes, crowbars, and other tools to overturn the huge purple crystal and toss it into the valley. Then, they began to dig up the soil and bury it inch by inch. However, the howls of wolves could be heard all around them. When the Chiliarch saw that the purple crystal was covered in soil, he immediately raised his hand and said, "All right, this place is deserted anyway. No one will find this thing. Let's go." The Iha Kingdom soldiers all mounted their horses and left. However, no one noticed that the starlight in the sky was slowly gathering and shining on the soil where the purple crystal was buried, as if it was being guided by some mysterious power. "Lin Ruoji, you bastard. I owed you in my previous life, and I even had to waste my divine power to protect your 3 souls and 7 spirits." A barely audible grumble came from the purple crystal. Chapter 310. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed, but the battle in Lanyan City had not stopped. The Serpent-Men and Lizard-Men armies were able to fully display their battle prowess in the rocky area. On the other hand, the Iha Kingdom cavalry was unable to use their charging formation and were repeatedly suppressed. For 5 consecutive days, there was no sign of them repelling the monster race army, and they even lost close to 30,000 men. The city walls were slowly being repaired. Under the canopy, Commander Qin Yi looked at the battlefield below with a livid face and said, "A bunch of trash. They can't even repel the demon race army after so long. They are simply trash." Ji Yao said indifferently, "General LV Zhao has tried his best. Qin Yi smiled coldly. Tried his best to sing praises for himself, right? Cutting off Qin Lei's head, soaking it in medicinal liquid, and sending it to Lingen. What can this prove? That LV Zhao is the founding father of Iha country? So the commander also knows about this. No matter what, Qin Lei is my nephew. He deserved to be killed for his stubbornness. But after his death, LV Zhao's actions disappoint me." Ji Yao cupped his fists and said, "Actually, it's mainly because, Qin Lei is one of Qin Jin's most valued generals, and he is also one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan. Therefore, General LV Zhao probably wants to use Qin Lei's head to boost the morale of Lingnan." Nonsense. Qin Yi was a little angry and said, "Summon Long Qianlin. Unless Long Qianlin comes, I'm afraid no one can defeat Tang Xiaoxi's demon race army." Ji Yao nodded, then suddenly looked up at Qin Yi and said, "Commander, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." "Say it." Ji Yao nodded. "Commander, since Iha country's capital is in Bailing City, then Lanyan City is no longer the capital. Moreover, we have slaughtered more than 1 million people in Lanyan City, and have already incurred countless grudges. Lanyan City is already tasteless to Iha country. If we continue to stay here, I'm afraid it will only be a waste of troops and food. Our provisions have to be transported from Lingnan, and it is inconvenient. Lanyan City is very close to Muyu City and Qihai City. I suggest that we withdraw from Lanyan City and set up the garrison in Tsangnan Province's Five Valley City. In that case, Qini narrowed his eyes and said, "Fine. Lanyan City is already in ruins. Let's leave it to Tang Xiaoxi. We'll come back to deal with that little girl when we regroup." "Chief Commander is wise." Ji Yao bowed, then carefully said, "Commander, about the conferring of titles to the 7 marshals, when will it be done?" "Well," Qini took a deep breath and said, "I wonder which 7 generals of the Iha nation are the 7 great commanders in your heart? This general is in the army, so I'm not willing to say too much. I'll let your highness make the decision. It should be up to his majesty to decide." Qin Yi also revealed a knowing smile. He looked around and said, "This title, in the future, don't ever call me that in a place with many people. Don't forget that Iha country belongs to the people of the world. We treat people with benevolence and all living things are equal. There is no king." "Yes, your majesty. Order Long Qianlin to resist the army of the demon race led by Tang Xiaoxi. The conferring ceremony will be held at noon tomorrow." At noon the next day, the main hall of Zetian Palace was filled with people. The officials of Iha Nation had gathered. For many of them, today was an important day because it was the day of rewards. Ignoring the demon race army that was attacking outside the city, Qin Yi needed to give some encouragement to the soldiers and generals who had been fighting for months. The conferring ceremony begins. An attendant shouted, "Chief Commander, please announce the names of the 7 great commanders of Iha Nation." Qin Yi held the hilt of the Desolation Sword in one hand and a scroll in the other. He walked to the front of the throne and said in a clear voice, "The world now belongs to our Iha Nation. The generals have worked hard. Today, Qin Yi has received the mandate of heaven to confer the title of the 7 great commanders. Everyone, please remember, treat people with benevolence and all living things are equal. The 100 Mountains Alliance, the Life and Death Pact." Qin Yi paused for a moment before continuing. Jiao fought his way from Lingnan to Lingbei and made countless contributions, so he was specially conferred the title of Grand Marshal. Qin Huan fought his way through Lingdong Province and Tongtian Province, so he was conferred the title of Vice Marshal. Lu Zhao won every battle he fought, so he was conferred the title of Third Marshal. Man Fong, the son of Earl Xiang, Man Ning, was valiant and invincible, so he was conferred the title of Fourth Marshal. Li Qianshuan, the hero of Lingnan, was conferred the title of Fifth Marshal. Ding Shi, the descendant of a famous general of Xiang City, was conferred the title of Sixth Marshal. Immediately, the officials congratulated each other. These 7 marshals would undoubtedly be the future leaders of the entire Iha nation. Naturally, they would be recommended and fawned upon by everyone. Lu Zhao smiled coldly and said, "I thought I could get a 2nd marshal. I didn't expect to only get a 3rd marshal." Ji Yao couldn't help but laugh. Young Prince Qin Huan is the son of the commander. Is General Lu Zhao unhappy about this? I wouldn't dare. Lu Zhao looked at Long Qianlin who was behind him and smiled. General Long Qianlin, on the other hand, has been invading the imperial capital like a hot knife through butter. You've even defeated Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, and other famous generals of the empire. I originally thought that General Long would be a great marshal, but I didn't expect you to be ranked last. Hee. Long Qianlin placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and said calmly, "General Lu Zhao, you're flattering me. I, Long Qianlin, am just trying to overthrow the empire for the sake of the people. I don't seek fame. It's already my great honor to be ranked as one of the 7 marshals. I heard that General Lu Zhao commanded 200,000 troops but couldn't do anything to a group of demons. I wonder if that's true." Lu Zhao said angrily, "Long Qianlin, watch your words." Long Qianlin said proudly, "How did I not watch my words?" Jiao tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, "Both of you are famous generals of the Iha nation. Don't lose your bearing. General Long, the Iha nation's army is about to retreat to Five Valley City. The heavy responsibility of defending Lanyan City will fall on your shoulders. Oh right, His Majesty. Oh no, the commander can only give you 50,000 troops. I wonder if you can stop Tang Xiaoxi's 100,000 troops. Why not? Long Qianlin said calmly, 50,000 troops is enough. Ji Yao laughed and looked at Ding Shi. It's already the 6th day. If General Ding Shi still can't take down Mount Dragon Rocky and capture Qin Yin, the daughter of a tyrant, I'm afraid we, the 7 marshals, won't have the face to face the people anymore. Ding Shi's gaze was indifferent. He cupped his fists and said, I'm incompetent. I still can't take down Mount Dragon Rocky. Please forgive me, Marshal. Ji Yao laughed coldly and said, What's there to talk about forgiveness? You and I are both generals who have contributed to the Iha nation. However, General Ding Shi really should speed up. I heard that Yunzhong province has been mobilizing troops frequently recently. That old fox Su Muyun should be making a move soon. Yes. In the afternoon, the Iha nation's army began to retreat from Lanyan City in a mighty manner. At the same time, they plundered all the wealth in Lanyan City. The caravans that transported goods stretched for hundreds of miles as they made their way to Five Valley City in an endless stream. At the same time, the road was filled with patrols carrying steel sabers and killing the people. The haze of death still hung over Lanyan City. The 7th Marshal, Long Qianlin, commanded 50,000 troops and horses and faced off against Tang Xiaoxi's army outside Lanyan City. The next day, news came from afar that 200,000 troops from Yunzhong province had come out and intercepted the Iha nation's army on the road between Lanyan City and Five Valley City. Su Muyun's daughter, Su Yu, personally led the troops and defeated the Iha nation's army. In the crushing defeat, the Iha nation lost nearly 50,000 troops and fled to Five Valley City. The tens of thousands of troops that besieged Mount Dragon Rocky also retreated from the dense forest to Five Valley City under Ding Shi's command. The letter flew out of his palm. Long Qianlin leaned against the broken bricks of the broken wall and suddenly laughed. Ha ha. Captaincy was dumbfounded and said, General, why are you laughing when the Iha nation has suffered such a crushing defeat? Retribution, retribution. Long Qianlin held onto the ice-cold bricks and said with a sneer, The Iha nation ignored my obstruction and launched a massacre at Lanyan City. This is retribution. Su Muyun, that old fox, is finally willing to send troops. I'm afraid this world is no longer the Iha nation's world. At this moment, a scout galloped over from afar. He cupped his fists and said, General Long, I've just received news that the Seven Seas Pass has been opened. Tang Lan has led 100,000 troops out of the Seven Seas Pass and is heading straight for Lanyan City. Long Qianlin's eyes turned cold and he said, Tang Lan, that old fox, finally can't stand it anymore? It's really not easy for that old fox to endure until now. Captaincy said, General Long, Seven Seas Pass and Sunset Rain City have sent their troops together. We are destined to lose Lanyan City. Long Qianlin nodded and said, Do you know why I want the remaining 50,000 cavalrymen of the Iha nation? It's not to kill the Naga army, but to run faster. Captaincy was stunned. General Long, you already knew that the Iha nation would lose 3 days ago? Qin Jin is dead, and the empire is leaderless. It's time for Tang Lan and Su Muyun to come out of their nests and share this delicious cake, isn't it? Yes, General is wise. What should we do now? Order everyone to bring their rations after nightfall and leave the city through the east gate. Don't disturb any citizens. Also, no one is to massacre the city again, or else they will be killed without mercy. Yes, where are we going? Sword Garret, back to Lingnan. We don't want Five Valleys City anymore. Captaincy's face turned green. We can't defend Five Valleys City any longer. Long Qianlin said indifferently, Instead of going to Five Valleys City to throw our lives away, why don't we go to Sword Garret and clear the obstacles on the way back to Lingnan? That night, in the silence of the night, 50,000 cavalrymen of the Iha nation left Lanyan City, leaving a capital riddled with holes for Tang Xiaoxi outside the city. In the early morning, "Do moisten the land of Lanyan City and the wounds of the city." Tang Xiaoxi slowly spurred her warhorse into the capital. Looking at the city gate that had been reduced to powder, tears flowed from her eyes. "Mu, you're not dead. Tell Xiaoxi that you're not dead, right?" Tang Zhen's eyes reddened as he said, "Princess, General Lin Mu, he is indeed worthy of being called a famous general, but he has really left me." "No, he won't," Tang Xiaoxi murmured. Chapter 311. In the Zetian Palace, almost all the treasures in the palace had been plundered. The Iha kingdom was like a group of bandits as they ransacked this world-famous palace. When Tang Xiaoxi led the army into the Zetian Palace, it was already empty and no longer as prosperous as it used to be. Fortunately, Long Qianlin could be considered a benevolent general and had burned down the Zetian Palace. He didn't even set fire to Lanyan City before he left. Otherwise, this famous city that had existed for thousands of years would have been burned to the ground. Ling Huyen led the 3 Fox tribe generals and followed closely beside Tang Xiaoxi. They looked at the black mass of corpses in front of the Zetian Palace. Their eyes were filled with reluctance, but they remained silent. One of the Fox tribe generals curled his lips and said, "The humans say that we demon tribe are cruel and ruthless. Now it seems that the humans are not much better. They might even be worse than us." The Naga leader at the side stuck out his tongue and hissed something. The captaincy of the 7 Seas city placed their hands on the hilts of their swords and lined up on another long red carpet in the Zetian Palace. They looked respectfully at Tang Xiaoxi and waited for her next order. "Duke Lan's army will arrive at Lanyan City in 3 days. Tang Zhen said respectfully, "Princess, shouldn't we be prepared? After all, you led the army to recapture Lanyan City on your own. Although it is a great achievement, you didn't get Duke Lan's approval and mobilized the 50,000 soldiers of the 7 Seas city. Moreover, we lost more than 10,000 people." Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. "It's all right. I will bear all the responsibility alone." "Tang Zhen, have you calculated how many people the Iha kingdom killed in Lanyan City?" Tang Zhen's expression was solemn as he said, "I don't have detailed statistics for now. However, looking at the situation, at least 1 million civilians in Lanyan City were slaughtered. The corpses piled up like mountains outside the city is enough to prove this. In addition, the massacre caused countless civilians to flee Lanyan City. Lanyan City has lost a lot of its population. In addition, the surrounding villages and towns have been massacred many times. I'm afraid that Lanyan City, which is known as the #1 city in the world, has far less than 5 million people left. It would be fortunate if half of its population could be preserved." "Got it." Tang Xiaoxi sat gently on the throne and said, "It's easy to cause a plague when the corpses decompose, so immediately organize people to bury and burn the corpses of the victims. In addition, send out an imperial notice to recall the refugees. Tang Zhen, go to Lanyan City and summon all the officials of the Ministry of Revenue who are still alive, as well as all the officials of the counties and counties. Have them organize people to bury the corpses and repair the walls and houses. We must restore order and livelihood in Lanyan City as soon as possible. I can't let Xiao Yin return to see a lifeless Lanyan City. Everything must be running again." "Yes, I understand." Tang Zhen cupped his fists and said, "But Princess, the monster race's army has already entered the city, but the serpent men, lizard men, and bear men aren't humans after all. Once Duke Lan's army of 100,000 arrives, I'm worried that it will cause a misunderstanding. So, in my opinion, the monster race's army has already helped the humans recover the imperial capital and can be sent back." Tang Xiaoxi gently nodded. Ling Huyen bowed and said, "Your Highness, I'm here. The monster race's army has made a great contribution this time, but I really have nothing to reward you with. In order to avoid another war between the humans and the monster race, immediately take my order and go to the demon-subduing pass. Return to the Forest of Infinity. I will visit you again." "Yes, Your Highness." Ling Huyen turned around and said loudly to the group of monster race generals, "Monster warriors, did you hear what Your Highness said? You are the pride of the forest of infinity. Now go home. Yes, Your Highness. The group of monster race generals bowed in unison, turned around, and left. Tang Jin blinked and said, I will escort the monster race out of Lanyan City. Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Yes, have a better attitude. Yes, Your Highness. At the edge of the dragon-seeking forest in the midst of spring, birds were singing and flowers were fragrant. In the sound of horse hooves, Su Myun, dressed in a black duke's robe, was surrounded by people with his hand on the hilt of his sword. Su Er rode the horse side by side, gazing into the distance, and said, Father, we are about to arrive at Dragon Rocky Mountain. According to the report from Yushu, the Longdan army camp has been cut off from rations and water. The Iha country has besieged them for half a month, and the number of people in the Longdan army camp has been reduced from more than 1,000 to more than 400. Su Muyun nodded. After the chaos in the Iha country, the major mercenary groups in the imperial capital did not obey the emperor's orders. A mere Longdan army camp can actually burst out with such great power. They really cannot be underestimated. Su Er said, Father, the founder of the Longdan army camp, is the emperor's foster son, Lin Muyu. I know. Su Muyun pulled the reins and said, Yu is a genius, but unfortunately, he died in the hands of Luo Lan. Sigh, it is really the empire's misfortune. I wonder how Xiao Yin is doing on Dragon Rocky Mountain. What you need to worry about is the situation in Lanyan City. Yes. At this moment, a white messenger bird descended from the sky and landed on Su Er's shoulder. She took the bamboo tube, took out the letter and glanced at it. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she said, Father, Long Qianlin's 50,000 heavy cavalry has retreated from Lanyan City. Now, Lanyan City has been attacked by Tang Xiaoxi's troops. Tang Xiaoxi? Su Muyun sighed and said, Lanyan City has been massacred, and all the feudal vassals have either submitted to the Iha kingdom or gone into hiding. No one would have thought that Tang Xiaoxi would lead the monster race army to declare war on the Iha kingdom. What a loyal and affectionate princess of Seven Seas City. However, with Tang Xiaoxi controlling Lanyan City, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous for us. Su Er was stunned. As long as we receive Xiao Yin, we can help Xiao Yin ascend the throne. Do you think Tang Xiaoxi will refuse to let us enter the city? That's enough. Let's hurry up and get Xiao Yin. Yes. When the Muyu City army arrived at the foot of Dragon Rocky Mountain, the people of Dragon Rocky Mountain were shocked. However, when they saw the Muyu City army waving the empire's purple Yinhua flag, Luo Yu was the first to jump off the city wall and ordered, Scouts, go and see where they are from. Don't fall into the Iha kingdom's trap. A scout galloped away, holding a purple Yinhua flag in his hand, and directly came to the front of the Muyu City army. He said loudly, Our Lord Luo Yu wants me to ask, where are you from? In the crowd, Su Muyun slowly rode out, cupped his fists, and said respectfully, The Cloud Province's Grand Duke, Su Muyun, is here to receive you. Please tell Her Highness Yin that grandfather is here. The scout was stunned, and his eyes widened, and he said, It's really the Muyu City army? Su Er said, How could it be wrong? I am Her Highness Yin's aunt, the commander of the Zither Dragon Army, Suyu. Just tell Her Highness the truth. The scout turned and left, and Qin Yin, Chu Yao, Qin Yen, and the others also came after hearing the news. Qin Yin's face was full of excitement. Is grandfather really here? Yes, Your Highness. Luo Yu cupped her fists and said, It's true. Qin Yin excitedly rode away, and she said with a smile, Everyone, follow me to welcome grandfather. The group went down the mountain, and when they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they saw Su Muyun and Su Yu from afar. Qin Yin's eyes instantly turned red, and tears swirled in her eyes. She leaped into Su Muyun's arms, and she cried loudly, Grandfather, why are you only here now? Su Muyun's body trembled, and he hugged the empire's princess in his arms. He gently stroked her hair, and he said, Xiao Yin, don't cry, it's all my fault. It's all my fault that I couldn't send my troops in time. Father is dead, Qin Lei, and Chu Huayin are all dead. Qin Yin slowly let go of Su Muyun, and she said, "Grandfather, you are more well-informed than me. Tell me, how is Big Brother Yu, and where is he now?" Su Muyun's expression darkened, and he didn't speak. At the side, Su Yu flipped off the horse, and she gently stroked Qin Yin's shoulder, and said faintly, "Xiao Yin Lin Muyu he was intercepted by Luo Lan in Lanyan City, and he died for his country, what?" Qin Yin stood there in a daze, and tears flowed out of her eyes. The golden god-binding chains around her started to spin uncontrollably, and it caused Su Yu and Su Muyun to retreat. In the next moment, Qin Yin suddenly fell to her knees, and she seemed to have lost her soul, and she muttered to herself, "No, no, no." Su Yu's heart ached, and she said, "Xiao, be strong, the empire needs you." Behind her, Luo Yu, Fengxi, Qin Yan, Wei Chou, and the rest all knelt in the direction of Lanyan City. Wei Chou's eyes were blood red, and he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Commander, if you die just like that, what will happen to us? What will happen to the Longdan army camp in the future? Commander, why did someone like you die? Tell me, Wei Chou, why did someone like you die?" Chu Yao stood there in a daze, and tears flowed down her face silently. The blow she suffered was probably no less than Qin Yin's. With Chu Huayin's death, Lin Muyu was her only relative. Now that she received the news of Lin Muyu's death, it was like a bolt from the blue. Su Muyun looked at Qin Yin, and his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. He held her arm and said, "Xiao Yin, be strong. We are going home soon, and rebuilding Lanyan City and recovering the empire is your mission." Qin Yin murmured, "Where is Big Brother Yu's corpse?" "I don't know. Maybe it has been transported away by the Iha nation." "How could they do this?" Tears rolled down Qin Yin's beautiful eyes, and she said, "Why did the Iha nation do this? Didn't they say that all lives are equal?" Su Muyun clenched his fists and said, "Xiao Yin, pull yourself together. Only you can summon the brave warriors of the empire to take revenge." Qin Yin nodded and said, "Grandfather, let's go home. Zetian Palace Hall needs us." Su Muyun said loudly, "Send Her Highness to the carriage. Quick, go to Lanyan City at full speed." "No, I won't take the carriage." Qin Yin shook her head and flipped onto the horse. She said calmly, "From today onwards, I will never take the carriage again." Su Muyun. Chapter 312. Overgrown weeds grew between the cracks of the bricks on the city wall, and they swayed repeatedly when the spring breeze blew. Tangjin pressed his hand on the hilt of his sword and stood on the city wall like a stone statue, supervising the commoners who were repairing the city wall in the distance. The broken wall had already been rebuilt to half its height, and smoke curled up from the chimneys in the city. The soldiers of the spiritual medicine department were preparing the commoners' lunch. Suddenly, a soldier pointed into the distance and said, "Commander, look! There are people coming from the direction of Seven Seas City." Tangjin was slightly stunned, and he looked into the distance. Sure enough, smoke and dust billowed in the distance. Not only were there people coming, but there were many of them. The 100,000-strong army of Seven Seas City was finally about to arrive at Lanyan City. However, they only arrived nearly 20 days after Lanyan City was massacred. "Go get Princess Xi." Not long after, Tang Xiaoxi walked up the city wall in a white embroidered robe, and a few Seven Seas City captaincy followed behind her. She slowly came to Tangjin's side and said, "Send a cavalryman out of the city to ask where they came from. Close the city gates, and don't trust anyone easily." "Yes, Prince." Tangjin did as he was told, and the cavalryman galloped over quickly. He cupped his fists at Tang Xiaoxi, who was on the city wall, and said, "Princess Xi, Commander Tangjin, it's young Master Tang Lu and young Lady Tang Wei from Seven Seas City. At the back, young Master Tang Tian is escorting Duke Lan over. The 100,000-strong army of Seven Seas City is about to arrive at Lanyan City. Young Master Tang Lu asked me to inform Princess Xi and order her to open the city gates and go out to welcome Duke Lan." "Tang Lu and Tang Wei?" Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips, and her eyes flickered with uncertainty. She said, Tangzhen, pass down the order to close all the city gates of Lanyan City and send a large number of soldiers to guard it. Prohibit any soldiers of the Empire or volunteers from entering Lanyan City. Ah, Princess? Tangzhen was shocked and said, This isn't very good, right? After all, we are all soldiers of Seven Seas City, and Duke Lan is personally leading the army of Seven Seas City to reinforce Lanyan City. It's fine if you don't come out of the city to welcome us, but why do you have to close the city gates? Tang Xiaoxi said faintly, There is only one master of Lanyan City, and her name is Qin Yin. Unless Qin Yin comes to Lanyan City in person, I won't hand the Tian Palace over to anyone. Tangzhen, don't forget that we took back Lanyan City from Iha Nation at the cost of the lives of more than 10,000 soldiers. Now, I'm the master of Lanyan City. Yes, I understand. Tangzhen wanted to say something but hesitated. After a few seconds, he cupped his fists and said, I'm willing to follow the Countess until death. That's good. Go and pass the order. Yes. The city gates of Lanyan City were closed, and Tang Xiaoxi stood on the city walls with her sleeves fluttering in the wind. She looked at the dense crowd of people of Seven Seas City gathering in the distance. An hour later, nearly 30,000 soldiers of Seven Seas City formed a formation outside the city. 2 generals riding white horses galloped over. They were Tang Lu and Tang Wei. This made Tang Xiaoxi feel a little uneasy. Tang Lan had 3 sons. The eldest was Tang Xiaoxi's father who had passed away, and the second was Tang Jin. Tang Jin had 3 children. The eldest was Tang Bin, who had been killed by Lin Muyu in the dragon-seeking forest. The second was Tang Lu, and his daughter, Tang Wei, were the 2 below the city. Tang Lu, who was dressed in silver armor, had already recognized Tang Xiaoxi. He spurred his horse forward and said, Shao Shi, quickly open the city gates. Grandfather's caravan is about to arrive. What are you waiting for? Tang Xiaoxi approached the city walls and said with a smile, I'll have to trouble second brother and little sister to go back and tell grandfather that Lanyan City has just suffered from a massacre. The city is not yet stable, so it's not suitable to station an army. So, grandfather, please station Seven Seas City outside the city. Shao Shi, what do you mean? Tang Lu suddenly frowned and asked. Boring. Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Second brother, look at the 2 sides outside the city walls. What is that? Tang Lu's gaze swept over and said indifferently, So what if there are corpses piled up like a mountain? Tang Xiaoxi giggled. Second brother, you also know that they are corpses? Then do you know why these people have become corpses? That's right, it's because the army of Seven Seas City hasn't come out yet. If the 200,000 people of Seven Seas City had come out in full force like now, these people wouldn't have died. Chu Huaying wouldn't have died, Qin Lei wouldn't have died, and Mu wouldn't have died either. What nonsense are you talking about? Tang Lu's gaze was cold as he said, The Seven Seas City is the foundation of our Tang clan, and the might of the righteous Harmony Nation is great. Even if we go all out, it would only be like striking a rock with an egg. Little Shi, quickly open the city gates, otherwise, what are you going to do? Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Otherwise, I'll flatten this broken city. Tang Lu raised his spear high and shouted, Soldiers on the city walls, you are all soldiers of my Tang clan. Have you forgotten the iron rules of the Tang sect? Immediately open the city walls and welcome Duke Lan's army into the city. However, the soldiers on the city walls didn't move at all. In fact, none of them even looked at Tang Lu. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Second brother, don't waste your efforts. They are soldiers of the Tang clan, but before that, they are soldiers of the empire. Not all of them are rebellious and want to ascend to the throne. Go back and tell grandfather that unless Shao Yin returns to Lanyan City, I won't open the city gates to let any soldiers in. If you want to enter the city, then come and attack. Archers, get ready. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A row of archers drew their bows in unison and aimed at Tang Lu, Tang Wei, and the rest below the city walls. Tang Lu had been spoiled and domineering since he was young. He had never suffered such humiliation before. His expression was cold as he said, "Good. You guys did well. As a member of my Tang clan, you actually dared to aim your arrows at me. Tangjin, I'll remember you." Tangjin cupped his fists on the city walls and said with a smile, "I'm sorry, second young master. This general listens to the iron orders of the Tang clan and is currently only loyal to Princess Shi. Moreover, I, Tangjin, am a soldier of the empire. My loyalty to the empire will never waver." But Tang Lu raised his spear and said, "Men, prepare the catapults. Attack the city for me." Tang Wei hurriedly pulled Tang Lu's arm and said, "Brother, don't mess around. Go back and tell grandfather about the situation here. If we really start a war with Xiaoxi, I'm afraid it'll get out of hand." Tang Lu gritted his teeth and spurred his horse to turn around and leave, vanishing like a wisp of smoke. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, Tang Lu and Tang Wei returned to the central army camp with pale faces. They bowed to Tang Lan from afar and said, "Grandfather, Lanyan City isn't willing to open the city gates to welcome the 7 armies. What's going on?" Tang Lan's face was pale, and he shivered in the night wind. He wrapped his robe in armor and said, "Haven't Xiaoxi and Tangjin already taken control of Lanyan City?" That girl and Tangjin have already committed treason," Tang Lu said coldly. "Moreover, Xiaoxi even ordered people to shoot at me with bows and arrows to force us to leave the city walls. How infuriating!" "Treason?" Tang Lan smiled and said, "Xiaoxi secretly mobilized the army of the Tang Town barracks and summoned the guards of the Demon Clan to take over the large Lanyan city from the Iha country. If this is considered treason, then we are all traitors of the country." "Grandfather," Tang Lu couldn't understand Tang Lan's thoughts and said, "Grandfather, now it's Xiaoxi, this rebellious descendant of the Tang clan, who is obstructing us from entering Lanyan City." Tang Lan sighed and said, "What did Xiaoxi say?" Tang Wei blinked and said, "Big Sister Xiaoxi said that unless Her Highness Qin Yin personally comes, otherwise, she won't open the gates of Lanyan City. This Lanyan City can only belong to Qin Yin and no one else. So, she asked grandfather to station the army of the 7 Seas city outside the city, and once Her Highness Yin returns to the city, she'll naturally accept the army of the 7 Seas city. Is that so?" Tang Lan's brows knit together tightly, and he waved his hand and said, "Tang Lu, Tang Wei, both of you go make arrangements to set up camp outside the city. Since Xiaoxi won't come to welcome this old man into the city, then we'll wait outside the city." Tang Lu and Tang Wei spurred their horses and left. Tang Lan sighed and remained silent. At the side, a general whose face was shrouded in a cloak smiled and said, "What a joke. The granddaughter has occupied the city, but she won't let her grandfather enter. This is truly a strange story. However, it seems that Duke Lan doesn't vent his anger on Princess Tang Xiaoxi. Why is that?" Tang Lan turned around and glanced at him, saying with a faint smile, "Can't General Xiang see? All the sons of the Tang family are mediocre, only Xiaoxi is an exception. Although she's a woman, she dares to do what she wants." When the Iha country's army of nearly 500,000 surrounded Lanyan City, who in the world dares to oppose them? Only I, this rebellious granddaughter, had the courage to stand up and contend with Ji Yao, Long Lin, Ding Shi, and the other famous generals without being defeated. The mysterious general smiled and said, "This is the truth. In the entire Tang sect, only Tang Xiaoxi is the most courageous and resourceful." "So," Tang Lan sighed and said with a smile, "No matter how rebellious Xiaoxi is, I can't be angry with her. She is my greatest pride and the only hope of our Tang sect." "Then, what do you plan to do now, Duke Lan? Are you just going to guard outside Lanyan City?" "No." Tang Lan's eyes flashed and he said, "The Iha country has seized more than half of the empire's territory, but now they are at the end of their rope. They can only retreat again and again. The army of Muyu City in Yunzhong province has also come out. We can't wait, and we don't have time to wait. We must seize more land before Qin Yin steps into Lanyan City. Duke Lan is wise. What do you need me to do?" "I'll give you a group of men. You must attack the Earth Star province, which is directly south of Lanyan City. You must seize Cold Star City and make it our territory. Tell me, how many men do you need? 2,000 cavalrymen are enough. Xiang Yu smiled confidently. 2,000? Tang Lan also smiled. You're indeed the descendant of the god of war, Xiang Wenin. This arrogance is indeed not something an ordinary person can have. I'll give you 3,000 cavalrymen. You must seize the entire Cold Star province within 3 days. Can you do it? Yes, General Xiang. Chapter 313. Starlight sprinkled on the earth. On the official road between Lanyan City and Songnan Province, the sound of horses' hooves was dense. Under the moonlight, the Empire's war flag's golden purple flower fluttered in the air, very bright. Qin Yin, dressed in a dark purple princess cloak, once again set foot on this abandoned land. All sorts of feelings welled up in her, but most of them were nostalgia for the deceased. She looked at Lanyan City under the moonlight from afar, her heart indescribably uncomfortable. When she thought of Lin Muyu dying in battle at the south gate of Lanyan City, Qin Yin's heart ached as if it was pierced by thousands of arrows. "Grandfather, I want to enter the city from the south gate," she said softly. Su Muyun looked at her with heartache and nodded. "Yes, we will listen to Xiao Yin." Beside him, Su Yu turned around and ordered, "Pass the order to the 3 armies to wait in the north and east of the city. The front army will follow Her Highness to the south gate. No one is allowed to clash with the army of Qihai City, otherwise, they will be punished according to military law." Everyone nodded in unison. Wei Chou, Chu Yao, and Qin Yen followed closely behind Qin Yin. They all knew the reason why Qin Yin went through the south gate. At night, the cold wind blew. Qin Yin wrapped her clothes tightly around her chest. Her beautiful eyes looked at the newly repaired south gate. There were still huge cracks and traces of newly built walls on the wall. Even the gate was pieced together, its defense could be said to be very weak. However, the swaying purple flower war flag on the wall was like iron chains, stabilizing the crumbling building. On the city wall, the torch swayed. Tang Jin's eyes were stern as he said, "Is it Her Highness Qin Yin's men?" Wei Chou flew forward and looked up. "General Tang Jin, don't you recognize me, Wei Chou?" Tang Jin had mixed feelings. "It's Lord Wei Chou, of course I know him. Her Highness Yin. Where is Her Highness Yin? Princess, she wants to see Her Highness Yin, can she?" In the crowd, Su Yu held a steel knife and stood in front of Qin Yin, saying, "Shield formation, protect Her Highness." A group of people guarded her left and right, but Qin Yin smiled and said, "No need, disperse. Anyone in this world can harm me, but Xiao Shi will never." She urged her horse forward and slowly walked out of the crowd. Strands of golden god-binding chains coiled around her body. She raised her head and looked up at the city. "Little Shi, it's me." On the city wall, a golden light soared into the sky. Tang Xiaoxi, who could not control her emotions, turned into a 9-tailed demon fox. Her 9 fiery red tails swayed slowly, and she jumped down from the city wall. Under the control of her power, she slowly landed. When she raised her head, her eyes were already full of tears. She cried and said, "Xiao Mumu is dead." Qin Yin looked at her with tears flowing down her face. Xiao Shi, the 2 sisters hugged each other and cried in grief. They both understood how it felt to lose a loved one. Everything could never go back. It was like a house on fire. Looking at its gray walls and broken walls, even though they knew it was home, they could never go back. The sound of hooves slowly approached. Chu Yao mounted the horse and put her hands on Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin's shoulders, saying, "Xiao Yin and Xiao Shi, don't cry. If Yu is watching from heaven, he would want to see your smiles instead of you grieving for him. Doesn't the Yu we know always face everyone with a smile?" "This." Qin Yin lowered her head and wiped away her tears, saying, "I know. I know." As she spoke, she looked deeply at Tang Xiaoxi and held her hand, saying, "Xiao Shi, you've suffered. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid the empire would have been doomed." Tang Xiaoxi murmured, "I thought I could save Mu, but I didn't. I'm really useless." "No. Qin Yin softly said, "You've already tried your best. I'm the useless one. I've always needed someone else's protection, but I can't help anyone. I'm the burden." Xiao Yin, don't say that. You're the Empire's only hope. Only you can unite this disintegrated continent. At this moment, Su Muyun and Su Er rode over. Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, "Old subject Su Muyun greets Princess Shi." Tang Xiaoxi hurriedly said, "You're too polite, Duke Yun. I'm just a junior, so I can't accept such a greeting from Duke Yun." Tang Xiaoxi greets Duke Yun. "Ha," Su Muyun laughed and said, "I heard that Princess Tang Xiaoxi is guarding Lanyan City and doesn't even allow the Seven Seas City's army to enter the city. She's waiting for Xiao Yin alone. This old subject is touched by her loyalty and friendship. Since that's the case, our Twilight Rain City's army won't enter Lanyan City anymore." Tang Xiaoxi smiled faintly and said, "Lanyan City is already riddled with the flames of war. If Duke Yun doesn't mind, then you can station outside the city. The heavy responsibility of rebuilding Lanyan City requires even more troops, and the 200,000 troops that Duke Yun is leading will be just enough to help." "All right." Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, "The Twilight Rain City's army is under Her Highness Ho Yin and Princess Shi's command. Then, shall we enter the city? I heard that Duke Lan is also outside the city. Quickly send someone to invite him into Zetian Palace." As they passed through the south gate, Qin Yin raised her head and looked at the huge pothole on the city wall. Her eyes couldn't help but turn red. "Big brother Yu, is he there?" Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said in a sobbing voice, "Yes. It said that when Mu was killed by Luo Lan, Icatosaurus created many dragon crystals to protect Mu's body. However, these dragon crystals were secretly taken away by the Iha nation's bastards. No one knows where Mu's body is. I've sent many people to look for it, but there's been no news." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were filled with hatred as she said, "This debt must be paid with blood by the Iha nation. Also, send more people to find Big Brother Yu's body." Su Er cupped his fists. "I understand. I'll definitely send more people to look for him." "Yes, thank you, Enner. You're too polite, Your Highness. This is what I should do." Everything in the capital seemed to have been destroyed, but it still retained its original appearance. As they passed by the Holy Temple and the Spiritual Medicine Department, they saw that the two temples had been destroyed by the fire. However, the sturdy walls and stone buildings were still there. On the ground, there was a huge pothole that was being filled up. Everyone urged their horses to go around it. Qin Yin couldn't help but take another look. Tang Xiaoxi said faintly, "Great Deacon Lei Hong was killed by the hierarch Luo Lan here." "Grandpa Lei Hong." Qin Yin's eyes dimmed as she said, "How did Big Brother Qin Lei die?" Tang Xiaoxi's expression darkened as she said, "Commander Qin Lei was surrounded and killed by Ji Yao's cavalry archers. His body was hit by hundreds of arrows, and in the end, his head was chopped off by LV Zhao. It said that LV Zhao soaked Commander Qin Lei's head in a potion and sent it back to Lingnan." "Bastard." Qin Yin clenched her fists, tears in her eyes. "The revenge of Iha nation must be repaid with blood." Qin Yin continued, "The Holy Temple, the Spiritual Medicine Department, and the Fire Sparrow Department are the pillars of the Empire. They must be rebuilt as soon as possible. The Spiritual Medicine Department has been severely damaged. Send some talented alchemists from Seven Seas City and Sunset Rain City to the capital." Su Muyun cupped his fists. "Yes, this old subject will handle this matter." Qin Yin nodded. "Thank you, grandfather. Also, the Spiritual Medicine Department needs someone skilled in alchemy and medicine to take charge. Sister Chu Yao, I will now officially appoint you as the Great Deacon of the Spiritual Medicine Department. Are you willing?" Chu Yao was stunned. She nodded. "Chu Yao understands." "Yes, thank you, Sister Chu Yao. What are you thanking me for?" Chu Yao was stunned. Qin Yin smiled faintly and said, "In order to protect the imperial capital, Lord Chu Huayin, a genius, died in battle outside the city. Sister Chu Yao, as an employee of the Spiritual Medicine Department, protected me for a long time at Dragon Rocky Mountain. I understand what the empire owes the Chu family. Chu Yao's expression darkened. She said indifferently, if that's the case, the people the empire owes are you and Commander Feng Jixing. General Feng. Qin Yin was startled and said, where is General Feng now? Su Er cupped her fists and said, Your Highness, General Feng Jixing led 30,000 troops to fight the rebels at the foot of Heaven's Rod Mountain and was surrounded by 300,000 soldiers. Long Lin lied to General Feng and caused 30,000 soldiers to be killed in Fire Badger Valley. The current Feng Jixing isn't the same Feng Jixing as before. He has lost his will to fight. Every day, he buries the corpses of those soldiers. The people I sent to invite him back were all chased away. On the side, Su Muyun said, Xiao Yin, Feng Jixing is a famous general, and in terms of leading troops, he isn't any weaker than Long Lin. However, he is too kind. Now that the empire needs people, grandfather thinks. Xiao Yin, you should find a suitable chance to personally head to Fire Badger Valley and invite Feng Jixing back to Yanlan City. Let him recruit from the millions of people in Yanlan City to form an invincible army. I will. Qin Yin licked her red lips and asked, Is there any news of Chu? Su Muyun shook his head and said, However, there are rumors that some people saw Chu meet Luo Lan in the north of the city. That night, flames shot into the sky, and many people suspect that Chu died for his country. After all, a saint venerable definitely isn't a match for a godly venerable. Understood. Qin Yin's eyes turned red and said, The chaos in Iha country caused us to lose our loved ones. We must remember this blood debt for the rest of our lives. Yes. Su Er nodded. Qin Yin said, Grandfather, Xiao Yin has something to ask of you. Speak Xiao Yin. In the Qin family's imperial mausoleum, build a monument for the fallen soldiers and call it the Nation Guarding Monument. All the soldiers who can remember their names must leave their names on the Nation Guarding Monument. Is that okay? Su Muyun was stunned, but those who aren't from the nobility don't have the right to enter the Qin family imperial tomb. No, if I say it is okay, then it is okay. Yes, I will follow your orders. Don't worry, Your Highness. I will come up with a name list for the Nation Guarding Monument. Thank you, Grandfather. Chapter 314. The Zetian Palace was brightly lit and everything was the same as before. The only difference was that there were fewer people and treasures. Tang Lan led the ministers of Qihai City into the imperial capital. In the middle of the night, no one had the slightest desire to sleep because this night was too important for the empire. This was the first meeting between the emperor and his ministers after the war. It also meant that there would be a new direction in the distribution of power in the empire. With the help of Tang Xiaoxi, Qin Yin walked step by step to the throne. When she lifted the hem of her skirt and sat down gently, all the ministers knelt on one knee and shouted, Your ministers greet your majesty. Your majesty? Qin Yin shook her head and said, Just call me your highness. In my heart, Father is the real radiant king. Moreover, the empire has fallen apart and the territory is less than half of what it used to be. I am no longer the emperor. Su Muyun nodded and said, Yes, your highness. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes flickered with a beautiful light. She looked at the crowd and said, Tell me, how many troops of the empire are in Lanyan City now? Don't hide anything. Su Muyun cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, Muyu City currently has a total of 210,000 troops stationed around Lanyan City. Among them, 50,000 cavalrymen are at Your Highness' disposal at any time. Tang Lan cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, this old minister has also brought 110,000 troops from Qihai province. In addition to Shaoxi's 40,000 troops, Qihai City has a total of 150,000 troops stationed around Lanyan City. At the same time, this old minister has already ordered Qihai province to recruit troops. In less than a month, we will be able to recruit another 100,000 troops. You've worked hard, Duke Lan. Qin Yin smiled. In the crowd, Zhenghua General Ling Nantian also cupped his hands and said, Your Highness, This old general has been gathering the scattered troops of the empire around Lanyan City these days. Now, there are more than 7,000 people gathered around Lanyan City, and they are at your highness' disposal at any time. Thank you for your hard work, General Ling. Qin Yi nodded her head again. At this moment, Qin Yan, the son of King Yuning, who was standing behind Tang Lan, raised his eyebrows and growled with a hint of anger on his face. You are all princes of the empire with hundreds of thousands of soldiers in your hands. When Lanyan City was surrounded by the Iha kingdom, Chu Huang, Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, and Qin Lei fought against the Iha kingdom's army with their lives. Where were you? Are the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in your hands just for show? Or are you waiting for the fall of the empire to divide the soup? These words caused Tang Lan, Su Muyun, Ling Nantian, and the others to be dumbstruck, and no one actually dared to reply. At this time, Qin Yin stood up and said in a gentle voice, Qin Yan, there's no need to say any more. The heavy snow has sealed the ancient path in the clouds, and Muyu City's army wants to reinforce Lanyan City but is powerless to do so. As for the Seven Seas province, hasn't Xiaoxi already led an army of 50,000 to come to the rescue? I believe that every one of the empire's ministers here is loyal. Qin Yan gritted his teeth and said, Yes, your highness. Qin Yin raised her head and glanced at Tang Lan, saying with a smile, Duke Lan, Xiao Yin has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Tang Lan was startled and said, Your highness, speak. This old subject is listening. Xiaoxi leads the troops well. Moreover, you have interacted with the 40,000 soldiers of the Sharp Peak Battalion under Tangjin for a long time. Why not hand over the military authority of these 40,000 soldiers of the Seven Seas City to Xiaoxi? Lanyan City is being rebuilt, and the situation is chaotic. I want to let Xiaoxi lead this army of 40,000 soldiers and hold the authority of the Imperial Army before the Imperial Army is rebuilt. Is that possible? Qin Yin looked at Tang Lan calmly and said. Tang Lan's gaze was calm as he cupped his fists and said, Your Highness is the monarch of a nation, and your words carry enormous weight. The Sharp Peak Battalion is the army of Seven Seas City, and also the army of the Empire. This old subject will do as you say. Good. Qin Yin smiled faintly and said, Promote Tangjin to the Western General, and rename the 40,000 troops under him the Nation-Guarding Army. They will all be under your command. In addition, you must listen to Tang Xiaoxi. Other than Xiaoxi and me, you don't need to listen to anyone else. Understood? Tangjin cupped his fists excitedly. This general obeys the decree. By the side, Tang Xiaoxi also snickered secretly and said, Xiao Yin is really smart. However, it was obvious that Tang Lan wouldn't be too happy with Qin Yin's separation of military power. These 40,000 soldiers would be renamed the Nation-Guarding Army, and Tangjin would be replaced by a group of trusted subordinates, such as captaincy and kiliarchs. Then, the military power of this army would really be completely in the hands of Qin Yin. In fact, Qin Yin also knew that although she was now the ruler of a nation, the military forces were not in her hands at all. She could not guess the thoughts of her grandfather, Su Muyun, at all. Tang Lan, on the other hand, was a person who kept a low profile and bided his time. No one knew where the future of the empire lay. When Iha Nation attacked Lanyan City, it was a battle. But now, it was a battle of power without the shadow of a sword. A map was unfolded in the center of the main hall. There were burn marks on the edges, but there was no other way. Zetian Palace was almost completely looted, and there was no way to find a second map. It was too late to ask the craftsmen to draw a temporary one, so they could only make do with it for now. Qin Yin stepped down from the throne, and her pale golden boots stepped on the blood-red carpet to the side of the map. She said lightly, Lanyan City is adjacent to Zhangnan Province, Tianshu Province, and Earthstar Province. Since Lanyan City has been recovered, the next step is to recover these three provinces. If anyone has any suggestions or opinions, please feel free to voice them out. Ling Nantian cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, Yuchi Tian of Tianshu Province is a two-faced villain. He previously surrendered to Iha Nation, but now he has sent a letter saying that he is willing to return to the empire. The 40,000 Tianshu army under him is even more willing to fight at the forefront for the empire. Despicable villain. Wei Chou clenched his fists and said, "It was this army who sent a fake letter and deceived General Feng into leading 30,000 imperial soldiers out of the city. Otherwise, Lanyan City might not have to suffer this disaster." Qin Yan said angrily, "Your Highness, you must reject Yuchi Tian's surrender. A debt of blood must be paid in blood." Qin Yin waved her hand and said, "The Iha nation still has nearly 300,000 troops. We are not sure that we can win, so we should try to gain as much strength as possible. Later, we will send people to take over the Heaven's Pivot province. At present, we only have to deal with 2 cities, the Five Valley City and the Cold Star City." Tanglan said, "Your Highness, you don't need to worry about Lengxing City. I have already sent General Xiang to lead 3,000 cavalry to attack. With General Xiang's ability, I believe that Lengxing City will be taken in less than 3 days." Qin Yin was startled. "I wonder which General Xiang is Master Lan talking about." "General Xiang Yu." "Xiang Yu?" Qin Yin was stunned. "Wasn't Xiang Yu secretly executed by Lord Chu Huayin?" Tang Lu, who was beside Tang Lan, cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, you may not know this, but Lord Chu Huayin is a benevolent general with a kind heart, so he didn't kill Xiang Yu and only ordered him to go far away. Grandfather knows Xiang Yu's ability, so he sent people to find Xiang Yu who lived in seclusion when the empire fell. He gave him a troop and ordered him to work for the empire again to make up for his mistakes." "I see," Qin Yin nodded. "That's good. As long as Xiang Yu can conquer the rebel army in Lengxing City, he will be forgiven for his previous crimes." "Thank you, Your Highness." Tang Lan cupped his fists and bowed. "As for Wugu City," Qin Yin blinked and said, "According to the military intelligence, Zhenan King Qin Yi, that old thing, will personally lead 200,000 troops to guard Wugu City. I wonder who is willing to attack Wugu City?" Tang Lan was silent. Everyone was also very quiet. It seemed that no one was willing to challenge the 200,000 troops of Wugu City. At this moment, Zhenan General Ling Nantian cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, since all the generals are so modest, this old general is willing to go. I only hope that Your Highness can allocate more troops for this old general to attack Wugu City. After all, this old general only has less than 10,000 troops under his command." Qin Yin smiled and said, "In that case, Duke Lan, Grandfather, each of you will allocate 50,000 troops for General Ling to attack Wugu City. How about that?" Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, "Yes, Your Highness." Although Tang Lan was unwilling, he couldn't do it openly, so he also cupped his fists and said, "This old subject will gather 50,000 troops tomorrow and hand them over to General Ling Nantian to command. Your Highness can rest assured." "That's good. All the provisions will be provided by Qihai City and Muyu City, respectively." "Yes." Everyone had their own thoughts, so they didn't say much. Qin Yin took a cup of tea from the maid and took a sip. She sat on the throne and waited for everyone to report anything else. Su Yu whispered to Su Muyun, "Father, why don't we attack the Five Valley City ourselves? Why do we have to hand it over to Ling Nantian, an old general who hasn't been on the battlefield for a long time? What if we lose 50,000 men? They are our elite soldiers." Su Muyun shook his head and said softly, "Do you think I don't want to? But Qin Yi has many famous generals under his command. The newly conferred 7 marshals of the Iha nation are all there. Ji Yao, Lv Zhao, Ding Shi, and Long Qianlin. None of these people are easy to deal with. As for us, after your brother's death, there is no real general in the Muyu City who can take charge of an area. Yu, if Father asks you to personally lead the troops to attack the Five Valleys City, do you have a chance of winning?" Su'er was stunned and said helplessly, "I am not as brave as brother, so I really don't have the confidence." "Yes." Su Muyun said calmly, "Follow Father to Fire Badger Valley tomorrow." "Why are we going to Fire Badger Valley?" "To find Feng Jixing. If we can get Feng Jixing's help, our Muyu City army will be invincible." Yes. After a while, Wei Chou suddenly cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, I have something to say. Qin Yin looked at him and smiled, Sir Wei Chou, just say what you want to say. Wei Chou looked at Qin Yin with clear eyes and said, Although Sir Lin Muyu died for the country, the Longdan army camp is still there. I hope that your Highness can allow us to rebuild the Longdan army camp. As long as the Longdan army camp is there, Sir Lin Muyu's soul will be there. Qin Yin was moved and her eyes turned red. The Longdan army camp is Brother Yu's private army? Okay, I will immediately promote Sir Wei Chou to rank 4 general and be the commander of the Longdan army camp. Luo Yu, Feng Shi, and Qin Yan will be deputy generals and be the deputy commanders of the Longdan army camp. The Longdan army camp will be the official army of the empire and the funds will be taken from the empire's treasury. Tomorrow we can recruit new soldiers in Lanyan City. Yes. In the mountains, the crystals buried deep in the ground shone with a faint purple light. A voice continued to grumble, Is my god power not enough to wake you up? How long are you going to sleep for, Lin Ruoji? Do you really want to wait until Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi marry someone else and have kids before you wake up? The spiritual sense fluctuations are stronger? Hee Lin Ruoji, it seems like you still care about these bitches. Quick, then wake up for this great emperor. Chapter 315. Winter passed and spring came. But Fire Badger Valley didn't have any signs of spring at all. What replaced it was a deathly silence. The newly grown grass in the soil was turned to ashes by a huge fire. At the same time, the 30,000 lives of the guard's army died. Bugs flew about the valley and the stench filled the air. A few wild dogs were fighting for the leg of a guard army soldier and rotten liquid splattered all around. Bastard! A blade energy flashed across and instantly 2 wild dogs were sliced into 2. Feng Jixing walked forwards and grabbed the leg of the guard army's corpse. He placed it in the deep hole at the side and then continued to drag the other corpses. His originally handsome face was now filled with death energy. Feng Jixing stumbled and black spots appeared on his wrists and face. That was the sign of the corpse poison invading his body. Luckily he had high cultivation. If it was a normal person who lived in such an environment for so long, they would have died long ago. Do. The sound of horse hooves spread out and a bunch of cavalry galloped into Fire Badger Valley. It was Su Muyun, Su Yu, and the others from Muyu City. Su Yu saw it clearly and pointed, Father, General Feng is there, but this place, it smells, and Su Muyu nodded and said, Let's go over. The bunch of them avoided the rotten corpses of the guard's army and came to Feng Jixing's side. Su Yu got off the horse and cupped her fists. General Feng, do you still recognize me? I am Cloud Province Duke Yun's daughter, Su Yu. Feng Jixing dragged a corpse step by step to the deep hole and placed it in. It was as if he didn't see Su Yu and the others arrive. Su Yu frowned and said, General Feng, you are... Feng Jixing grabbed the wind cutter blade that was stabbed into the ground. His gaze turned cold and he said, Are you all here to steal the corpse? Scram, otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Su Yu stood there in a daze. General Feng. On the side, Su Muyun got off the horse and held a golden staff. He looked calmly at Feng Jixing and said, General Feng, the 30,000 soldiers are the pride of the empire. Are you willing to let them rest in this desolate Fire Badger Valley? Don't tell me, you have the heart to let the beasts dig the soil and eat their corpses? Feng Jixing suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked at the ground that was covered with dark red blood stains. Su Muyun continued, General Feng, Her Highness Qin Yin isn't dead. She has returned to Zhe Tian Hall. Now Lanyan City is back in the hands of the empire. Cloud Province and Seven Sea Province have hundreds of thousands of troops protecting Lanyan City. Iha country has already retreated back to Five Valley City. Moreover, Her Highness Qin Yin has already ordered the construction of a country-guarding monument to bury these soldiers who sacrificed their lives for the empire. In my opinion, the 30,000 soldiers should be buried under the country-guarding monument. What does General Feng think? Feng Jixing turned around and stared at Su Muyun with a pair of beast-like eyes. He said calmly, Su Muyun, do you think I, Feng Jixing, don't know what kind of person you are? The capital has been surrounded for so many days and the people of Cloud Province can even crawl over. Yet, you allowed Lanyan City to be ravaged by the Iha country bastards and caused Her Highness Qinin to die. Now that the Radiant King is dead, I'm afraid that all the power in the world is in your hands, right? Su Muyun was taken aback. He said, General Feng, as Duke Yun, I didn't even hold you accountable for killing my son, Su Qin. Why do you have to get to the bottom of it and hold me, Su Muyun, accountable for my negligence? If you were a father, you would do the same thing. Right now, Xiaoyin is my, Su Muyun's, only hope. The only thing I want to do is for Xiaoyin to become the ruler of this world and raise the Iha nation to the ground. What do you want me to do? Feng Jixing asked calmly. Su Muyun smiled. Command the army of Twilight Rain City and sweep across the northern mountains. First, drive the Iha country bastards from Lingnan to the south of the Qinling Mountains. Now that the Empire has many things to do, Xiangyu has been reactivated by Tanglon, Chu Huayin and Lin Muyu have died in battle, Xiaoyin and I can only use you. I hope that General Feng will come out of seclusion again for the sake of the people of the Empire. Chu, you, Feng Jixing frowned and tears welled up in his eyes. He lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and looked at Su Muyun and Su Yu. He said, I, Feng Jixing, am a sinner. I will only leave after I bury my 30,000 brothers. Moreover, I can't just listen to your side of the story. Before I see the nation-guarding monument and Her Highness Qinin, I will not serve anyone. Got it? Su Muyun nodded. I will prove it to you. As he spoke, Su Muyun got on his horse and shouted to the guards, the few of you stay here and gather firewood to cremate the bodies of the Imperial Guards. Bring their ashes to the nation-guarding monument. In addition, go to Great Deacon Chu Yao and summon the medical officer from the Spiritual Medicine Department to come here and treat General Feng's injuries. No one is to be negligent. Everyone cupped their fists together. Yes, Sir Yun. On the way back, the mottled shadows of the trees scattered on the ground. Su Yu held the reins and frowned. Her black cloak swayed gently behind her. You, what are you thinking about? Su Muyun asked. Su Yu smiled faintly. Father, I'm thinking. Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, and Qin Lei. These four are indeed outstanding. It's a pity that the heavens are jealous of their talents. Now only Feng Jixing is left. Outstanding, Su Muyun smiled thoughtfully. Outstanding people can't go against the heavens. The death of Chu Huayin, Lin Muyu, and Qin Lei was the will of the heavens. The fact that Feng Jixing is still alive means that the heavens are looking out for the Qin Empire. They gave us the bloodline of a famous general. Otherwise, we won't be able to fight against the powerful Iha country. Su Yu nodded and said, Father, what are you thinking? Can you tell me? Su Muyun was stunned. What am I thinking? The future, the empire. Sigh. Su Muyun sighed and said faintly, Xiaoyin is still young, but she has to bear everything in front of her. The Iha country will definitely make a comeback. Tanglon, that old fox, is also eyeing us covetously. The only thing we can do now is to protect Xiaoyin and the royal power of Lanyan City. Don't let Tanglon have the upper hand. I'm afraid that when the time comes, that old fox might cripple Xiaoyin and make Tang Xiaoxi the empress. Su Yu opened her mouth in shock. It can't be. After all, Xiaoyin has the bloodline of the Qin family, but Tang Xiaoxi doesn't. Who knows? The premise is that we have a stronger military force than the opponent. But we don't have an absolute advantage against the Qihai province, so everything is hard to predict. You, try to delay the dispatch of troops to Wugu City. It would be better if we can delay it until Feng Jixing comes out of seclusion. Father, you don't believe in Ling Nanshan's ability to lead troops. Hee. Su Muyun smiled lightly. If Ling Nantian is really a famous general, I'm afraid Lanyan City won't be in such a miserable state. Right? You, send more people to the southern border and the western region to find the lost troops of the Empire. You must find the whereabouts of Du Hai. He is the first warrior of the Empire. If we can use him, it will be even more powerful. Yes, Father. On the 11th of May, news of victory arrived. Xiangyu, with a force of 3,000 cavalrymen, had successively conquered Cold Star City, Buga City, and a total of 11 cities in the Earthstar province. Other than Cold Star City, which resisted slightly, the other cities had already surrendered. On the morning of the 12th, Xiangyu led the army back to Lanyan City and was welcomed by the people of Lanyan City. In Zetian Palace, Xiangyu led a few trusted generals into the main hall. He smiled and cupped his fists in a dignified manner. General Xiangyu greets Your Highness Yin. Qin Yin nodded. General Xiangyu has made great contributions in quelling the rebellion. Thank you for your hard work. Tang Lan cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, General Xiangyu is free to quell the rebellion. Moreover, the Empire is in need of manpower at this time. Therefore, this old official suggests that Your Highness promote General Xiangyu to the second-rank State General. Su Muyun frowned and said, Duke Lan, although General Xiangyu has made great contributions, he is still a sinner. Isn't it too much to promote him to the rank of State General after conquering a mere Earth-Star province? Tang Lan smiled. Duke Yun, the Yiha Empire's army has swallowed our empire's territory. It is not easy to take back every inch of our land. Moreover, General Xiang has conquered the entire Earth-Star province. Su Er said, What Duke Lan said makes sense. However, if General Xiangyu can be promoted to the rank of State General after conquering a province, wouldn't he be promoted to the Empire's Marshal if he conquered 2 provinces in a row? Ah! Tang Lan laughed. General Su Yu is not inferior to men. What you said is very reasonable. How about this? Your Highness, this old official suggests that General Xiangyu be promoted to the 3rd-rank State General. What do you think? Wei Chou, who was in the crowd, was slightly displeased. He cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, the title of State General originally belonged to Lady Lin Muyu. Tang Lan's gaze turned cold. Although Lin Muyu died in the line of duty for the Empire, she is still a deceased person. Why not? Qin Yin stood up and said lightly, Since Duke Lan insists on conferring the title of Xiangyu, then let's do as you say. Someone, promote Xiangyu to the rank of State General and bestow him with the sword seal. I hope that General Xiangyu can continue to serve the Empire and recover the land. This general obeys. Xiangyu smiled and happily knelt on one knee. Qin Yin looked up at the crowd and asked, How is the battle at Five Valley City? Su Er cupped her fists and said, Reporting to Your Highness, General Ling Nantian has led 100,000 troops to Five Valley City. Yushu reported that the siege is urgent, but Five Valley City is guarded by Lingnan's famous General Dingxi. There are 200,000 troops inside and there are also the troops from Tongtian province. So it is difficult to attack in such a hurry. I'm afraid it will take some time to take down Five Valley City. Yes, do a good job in defending Lanyan City and prevent the Yiha Empire from invading again. Yes, Your Highness, rest assured that this general will do a good job. Su Er was full of confidence. If she was asked to lead 100,000 troops to attack, she would not be able to do it. But if she was asked to lead tens of thousands of troops to defend the city, this was something she could handle. Chapter 316. Lanyan City, Qin's Imperial Mausoleum. Tens of thousands of people worked together to send the remains of the fallen soldiers into the Imperial Mausoleum. The total number of soldiers who died in the Battle of Lanyan City had exceeded 100,000. A huge dark stone tablet was lined up in a row, and the craftsmen were lying on the bamboo ladder, carving the names of the fallen soldiers onto the nation-guarding monument with tinkling sounds. The nation-guarding monument at the front was also the largest. The names of 10,000 imperial warriors were densely carved on it. Her Highness has arrived. A guard shouted. The craftsmen knelt on both sides of the road. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, Qin Yin led Chu Yao, Tang Xiaoxi, Wei Chou, Qin Yan and the others into the imperial mausoleum. Everyone dismounted one after another. Qin Yin lifted the tassels on her skirt and walked forward step by step. Looking at the names on the nation-guarding monument, she could not help but burst into tears. Chuyao also looked up at the names on the nation-guarding monument. Her eyes turned red. Brother. Tang Xiaoxi's nose turned sour. Looking up at Lin Muyu's name, her tears flowed down silently. Wei Chou, Qin Yan, Luo Yu and Fengxi, the 4 generals of the Longdan army camp, quickly knelt on one knee and remained silent to show their remembrance. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the names on the nation-guarding monument glowed with a golden luster. It was as if it was telling the world the story of the past and those people from the past: Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, Qin Lei, Chu Chu, Lei Hong, Si Kong Fan, Yu Wenxia, Zhuge Yun, Meng Fong, Luo Lai. According to Qin Yin's ranking, Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin and Qin Lei were the top 3. Chu Chu and Lei Hong were the 4th and 5th respectively. Following them were the governor of Five Valleys City, Si Kong Fan, and the former protector of the nation, Yu Wenxia and the others. Among them, the highest-ranking general of the imperial army was Luo Lai, who was ranked as the deputy commander. He was also Feng Jixing's most trusted subordinate. Your Highness. Su Yu stood to the side and helped Qin Yin up. She said softly, "The dead are gone. I believe Lord Yu and Chu Huayin will be watching us from the heavens. They will be gratified to see us reclaim the empire's territory." Tang Xiaoxi looked at the nation-guarding monument with determination and said, "Shao Yin, I feel that Yu is not dead. It's as if he's still by our side. This feeling can't be wrong. Yu is not dead." Qin Yin looked at Tang Xiaoxi in astonishment and said, "Shao Shi, you also have this feeling?" Me too." Qin Yin silently looked at Lin Muyu's name on the nation-guarding monument and said, "He said he would come back to me, so he definitely wouldn't lie to me." Su Yu helplessly sighed and said, "This is just your wishful thinking. Many people saw that you died in battle. This is an indisputable fact." "Auntie C, don't say any more." Qin Yin pursed her lips and murmured, "I will wait for him. He will come back. It's that simple." Just as she had said to Lin Muyu, "The mountains are long and the rivers are far. We will meet again if we are fated to." But would they really meet again? AI, silly girl. Su Er shook her head and did not try to persuade her anymore. Year 7731, 20th of June. 1 month after Ling Nantian set out. The battle report came. Defeated. What? Defeated? Qin Yin angrily asked, "How did they lose so thoroughly?" The messenger trembled as he knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "Reporting to your highness. Ding Shi privately contacted Yu Qi Tian in the Heavens Pivot province, so Yu Qi Tian sent 20,000 Heavens Pivot soldiers out to cause trouble. That night, Ding Shi led 100,000 soldiers out to attack and successfully defeated Ling Nanshan's army. They are currently regrouping." Regrouping? Qin Yin laughed. "What use is there in regrouping? Yu Shu orders Ling Nantian to retreat and Su Yu to lead 50,000 soldiers to welcome the defeated army. If the Iha kingdom pursues, immediately counterattack." Su Yu cupped her fists. "Yes, your highness." Tang Lan cupped her fists. "Your highness, since Ling Nantian has been defeated, we must appoint a new general. Otherwise, I'm afraid the Iha kingdom will take advantage of this and attack Lanyan city. At that time, we will fall into a passive state." What Duke Lan said makes sense. Qin Yin looked at the crowd. Is there any other general who can go to war for the empire and extinguish the arrogance of the Iha kingdom? Su Muyun frowned. Feng Jixing was not willing to come out of seclusion. Although there were thousands of generals in Muyu City, there was not a single one who could really shoulder the responsibility. Those were only talented generals and not commander-in-chief. At this time, one of the generals cupped his fists and said, "Xiang Yu is willing to go to war." Qin Yin smiled slightly. "How many soldiers does General Xiang Yu want?" "Not too many." Xiang Yu looked up at Qin Yin and said, "Your Highness, I only need 50,000 elite soldiers under Duke Lan to take down the Five Valleys city for your highness." Only 50,000? Qin Yin frowned slightly and said, Zhe Tian Palace does not joke. General, please be careful. Only 50,000. Xiangyu repeated and said, if I cannot take back the Five Valleys city with 50,000 elite soldiers, I, Xiangyu, am willing to accept military law. Qin Yin nodded. Approved. Immediately send the troops to war. After the meeting, Su Muyun and Su Yu entered the rear hall together to see Her Highness. Grandfather, you must have something to say, right? Qin Yin sat down and said with a smile. Su Muyun nodded and cupped his fists. Xiao Yin, do you know the situation in Planet Earth Province? After Xiangyu took over Planet Earth Province, he left 3 trusted generals to guard Cold Star City and other important cities. He also recruited soldiers and bought horses on his own in the name of strengthening the empire, but he did not report to the Ministry of War at all. Qin Yin nodded and said, yes, special times call for special treatment. But in the long run, I'm afraid Tanglan's wings will become more and more plentiful. Now, Seven Seas City has another 100,000 new soldiers, and they are intensifying their training. In addition to the 30,000 soldiers they recruited in Planet Earth Province, Tanglan's military power is getting stronger and stronger. Xiangyu goes to war and defeats Iha Nation. I'm afraid Five Valleys City will also fall into Tanglan's hands. Su Muyun said worriedly, even the officials we sent to take over Planet Earth Province's military power and political power have been taken over. We have to be wary of Tanglan's heart. Qin Yin said softly, I know, but we can only rely on Duke Lan now. If not, who would be willing to help the Qin family get rid of the traitors of Iha Nation? Su Muyun took in a deep breath and said, most of the 30,000 corpses of the Fire Badger Valley Guard's army have been moved into the country protecting monument. Your Highness, if you have nothing to do in the afternoon, why not follow us out of the city to invite Feng Jixing back to Lanyan City? Feng Jixing? He blames himself too much. If not for your Highness personally inviting him, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing to return to Lanyan City. Let's head out now. It was early summer, and butterflies danced outside Fire Badger Valley. Qin Yin was wearing a white royal dress and a dark blue cloak, the same color as the imperial military uniform. This time, she brought a total of 5,000 cavalrymen of Muyu City out of the city, in addition to the 500 guards of the Brave Dragon Battalion, so there was no room for error. In addition, there was an additional group of people in the crowd. This group of people was wearing white robes, with the badge of the Imperial Army on their shoulders. In the wilderness, Feng Jixing sat there in a dejected manner. His long hair was scattered and even his beard had grown out. The horse hooves slowly stopped. Qin Yin got off the horse and stood in front of Feng Jixing. She said softly, General Feng, Qin? Qin Yin, Your Highness. Feng Jixing's body shook. He raised his head and looked at Qin Yin's beautiful face. He muttered, Your Highness? Is it really Your Highness? If it isn't me, who else can it be? Qin Yin smiled. She didn't mind that Feng Jixing was covered in mud. She held his arm and said, General Feng, I am here to invite you back to Lanyan City. However, Feng Jixing retracted his hand as if he was electrocuted. He knelt on the ground and took a few steps back. His forehead knocked heavily on the ground several times in a row. In the blink of an eye, his forehead was covered in blood. He said with a trembling voice, Sinner Feng Jixing can no longer return to Lanyan City. Why not? Qin Yin asked sadly. Feng Jixing's eyes turned red. He said, The 30,000 brothers of the Imperial Guards trusted me, Feng Jixing, and were willing to disarm themselves. However, they were massacred. It's all my fault. I can die 10,000 times. I am a sinner covered in blood. I don't have the face to return to Lanyan City. Your Highness, please grant me death. If I die under Your Highness's sword, Feng Jixing can die in peace. I don't have to suffer anymore. No, you can't die. Qin Yin looked at him and said, If you die, who will avenge brother Yu? Who will avenge Lord Chu Huayin? Who will avenge Commander Qin Lei? You can't die. Feng Jixing knelt on the ground and buried his face in the soil. he wailed. At this moment, a group of people wearing the armor of the Imperial Guards walked out from the crowd. Their faces were full of grief. The leader was a bearded man. He slowly knelt on the ground and murmured, "General Feng, old Zhang has brought the brothers to see you." Feng Jixing trembled. He raised his head and saw Zhang Wei and the group of Imperial Guards. He couldn't help but cry, "Zhang Wei, it's Zhang Wei. You guys didn't die? You guys didn't die?" Although Zhang Wei was a rough man, he still knew how to be loyal. Tears flowed from his eyes as he knelt on the ground and said, "Have you forgotten General Feng? Before you left for Mount Tianming, Lord Lin Muyu asked you to leave 1,000 of us to defend the city. He was the one who saved the torch of the Imperial Guards." "You that brat?" Feng Jixing was inconsolable. He sat on the ground in a sorry state. Tears dripped onto his rotten armor as he murmured, "I've let my brothers down, I've let you down, I've let old Chu down. Feng Jixing, I'm a sinner, an unforgivable sinner." Qin Yin looked at him and walked forward again. Her body trembled as she knelt in front of Feng Jixing. She held his arm and said, "General Feng, Xiao Yin is now the monarch of the Qin Empire. Now is the time for you to atone for your sins. Follow me back to Lanyan City and lead the troops into battle. You'll become a general of the Qin Empire again. The more Iha Kingdom's traitors you kill, the more you can wash away the bloodstains on you. Are you willing to pledge your loyalty to me, Qin Yin, again?" Feng Jixing trembled and slowly knelt down. "Feng Jixing is willing to follow your highness for the rest of my life. I'll be loyal to the empire until death." Chapter 317. In Zetian Palace, Feng Jixing freshened up and put on the white robe Imperial Forest armor again. This was the new armor Qin Yin had prepared for him. The Qin Empire originally had 6 experts who enjoyed the title of White Robe Imperial Forest: Du Hai, Feng Jixing, Chu Chu, Qin Lei, Lei Hong, and Yao Yuan. Now, Du Hai was missing, Chu Chu, Qin Lei, and Lei Hong had died in battle, and Yao Yuan's whereabouts were unknown. In the vast Qin Empire, Feng Jixing was the only remaining White Robe Imperial Forest. On his collar, behind the purple flower, there were 3 gold stars. This was the rank of a commander. Feng Jixing's heart skipped a beat. He felt as if thousands of arrows were piercing through his heart. Zhang Wei was promoted to the deputy commander of the Imperial Army. In addition, Feng Jixing had taken Xiahou Sang away from the Longdan army camp. Therefore, both Zhang Wei and Xiahou Sang followed behind Feng Jixing. It looked quite imposing. "Congratulations, General Feng." Tang Lan cupped her fists and smiled. Feng Jixing nodded. "Thank you, Duke Lan." However, behind Tang Lan, Tang Tian, Tang Lu, Tang Wei, and the other Tang clan generals all had looks of jealousy on their faces. They seemed to understand that Feng Jixing's return was a great provocation to the Seven Seas city's Tang sect's strength. After all, Feng Jixing was Qin Jin's old general and also one of the empire's 7 divine generals, a famous general of the present age. Feng Jixing submitting to Qin Yin and Su Muyun was definitely not a good thing. Qin Yin sat on the throne and said, "Feng Jixing is loyal, brave, and unyielding. I am specially promoted to Zhenghua General and Commander of the Imperial Army. I order you to rebuild the Imperial Army of Lanyan City. In addition, your first mission is to lead 50,000 troops around the dragon-seeking forest and go straight to Tianshu province. Bring Yuqi Tian's head to me. General Feng, can you do that?" Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, "Rest assured, Your Highness." Xiang Yu had once been a sinful general under Qin Jin's edict, so there were people who stopped him from being promoted. However, Feng Jixing was originally one of the imperial commanders, so there was nothing wrong with him being promoted to second-rank state general. At the side, Su Muyun smiled and said, "General Feng, the 50,000 elite troops have been prepared for you. You can take a rest tonight. Tomorrow, we will set off for Dubhe province." "Yes, Duke Yun." Feng Jixing was very respectful. He also knew that the military power of the empire was not in the hands of Qin Yin, but in the hands of Su Muyun and Tang Lan, the 2 guardian Grand Dukes. He had to be polite to these 2 people. That night, in the Forbidden Army's main camp, Zhang Wei and Xiahou Sang were preparing their warhorses, weapons, and armor. They were all beaming with joy, but Feng Jixing was carrying a wine jar. He mounted his horse and said, "I'm going out for a walk. You guys stay here and wait for my orders." Zhang Wei hurriedly said, "Commander, let me bring a team of guards with me. The empire is in turmoil, and it's not safe anywhere now." Feng Jixing's laughter came in the wind. "Don't worry. Who in Lanyan City has the ability to kill me now?" Zhang Wei was speechless. Just as Feng Jixing said, Xiangyu had set off for the war. There was no one in Lanyan City who could be a match for Feng Jixing. The starlight scattered on the ground. Feng Jixing rode his horse straight into the imperial mausoleum. In the distance, the nation-guarding monument glowed brightly under the starlight. Feng Jixing sat beside the nation-guarding monument and looked up at the names of Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, and Qin Lei. He drank a mouthful of strong liquor and felt that the liquor burned his throat. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. As he laughed, tears flowed down his cheeks. He quietly leaned against the nation-guarding monument. As the moonlight fell on his face, Feng Jixing choked with sobs and said, You once asked me if I was afraid. I said I wasn't. Now I'm afraid. Brother Feng knows how you feel. The 4 heroes of Lanyan disappeared in the blink of an eye. I'm the only one left. I'm so scared. How can I continue on my path in the future? Old Chu, Ale, how are you guys doing in that world? The nation-guarding monument was cold. Feng Jixing raised his head and took another sip of strong liquor. He sobbed like a child and said, "If only we could go back to the days when we were drinking in the pavilion of raindrops, how good would that be?" He looked up at the jungle in the distance. His eyes flashed with despair. He knew that he could never go back. After a long time, Feng Jixing stood up and poured the remaining liquor in the jar under the nation-guarding monument. With a determined look in his eyes, he said, "Brothers, wait for me. On the day Feng Jixing unifies the territory of the empire, I'll accompany you to drink in the netherworld." He turned over and mounted the horse, galloping away. The next day, Feng Jixing led the 50,000 troops of Muyu City on an expedition to the east and went straight to Tianshu province. At this time, Xiangyu was leading the troops to attack Wugu City. This was undoubtedly another head-on blow for Iha country. Once they lost the protection of Tianshu province, Wugu City would become a lonely city and lose all reliance and support. Empire Calendar Year 7731, June 27th, 10 miles north of Wugu City, Xiangyu's army camp. Buckets of blood-red berries were transported into the camp. The berries emitted a strange fragrance, but all the soldiers in charge of escorting them had cold eyes and did not look at the berries at all. "General is here." A chilly arch dismounted and saluted respectfully. Xiangyu carried the bloodbath spear and rode his horse into the crowd. He asked, "Is everything ready?" "Yes, General." A military officer in a purple robe cupped his fists and said, "Almost all the blood fruits in Songnan province have been picked by us. A total of 182 buckets of berries have been gathered." "How toxic is it?" Xiangyu asked. The military officer smiled. "A 1,000-year-old elephant accidentally eats a blood fruit. It's enough to kill it. In these wooden buckets, there are at least hundreds of blood fruits in each bucket. General should be able to guess the toxicity of these nearly 200 buckets of blood fruits." "Good," Xiangyu smiled slightly and said, "Pass down my order to the 3 armies. From today onwards, our drinking water can only be fetched from the dragon-seeking forest. We can no longer use water from the rice river. As soon as it gets dark, immediately dump all the berries into the rice river. The rice river is the river of life for Wugu City. As long as the rice river is poisonous, Wugu City will be defeated and destroyed." One of the captains of 7 Seas City was astonished, and he said, "General, these blood fruits won't just kill the traders of the Iha nation, they'll kill the commoners of 5 Valley City as well. There are 2,400,000 people in 5 Valley City." "So what?" Xiangyu said lightly, "These people were originally citizens of the empire, but they pledged allegiance to the Iha nation. Death cannot wipe out their crimes. Pass down my order, there must be no mistakes. If there is any crime, Xiangyu will bear it alone. That night, 182 buckets of acute pain berries flowed down and melted into the Rice River. The Rice River surrounded Wugu City and provided all the city's daily water supply. The next day, hundreds of thousands of people died in Wugu City. It was chaos. Both sides of the city road were filled with the moans and wails of the poisoned. It was unbearable to hear. A row of cavalry slowly passed. Ding Shi was wearing a general's cloak, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His eyes swept across both sides and said lightly, "It is confirmed that the water source has been poisoned, is it?" "Yes, General." The guard on the side said, "The entire Rice River has been infected with poison. All the dead fish on the river surface have floated up as far as the eye can see." "Bastard!" Ding Shi clenched his fist and said, "Pass down my order, no more drinking water from the Rice River. Dig underground water sources to drink." "But General, the Rice River is deep. The poison must have already entered the underground water. Even if we drink well water, we will still be in danger of poisoning. This," Ding Shi frowned and said, "perhaps we should consider withdrawing our troops. Immediately follow me to see the commander." The governor's manor in Five Valley City had now become Qin Yi's governor's manor. Ding Shi entered with his sword in hand. When he entered the hall, he saw Ji Yao and LV Zhao from afar. Qin Yi was leaning against a chair with his eyes closed, his face full of fatigue. It seemed that after the northern expedition, which had almost destroyed half of the empire, Qin Yi had not enjoyed the pleasure of becoming a king. "Is it General Ding Shi?" Qin Yi asked lightly. "Yes, General." Ding Shi cupped his fists and said, "Commander, Xiangyu poisoned the Rice River. Moreover, it's a blood fruit poison. Hundreds of thousands of people have died today. This general suggests that we immediately abandon Five Valleys City and lead the army out of the city. Take the people of Five Valleys City and head south to Hundred Ridge City." LV Zhao's face turned cold. "Ding Shi, are you advising the commander to abandon the 8 northern provinces of Iha country? This general does not dare." Qin Yi slowly opened his eyes and said, "Pass down my order. Everyone starts drinking well water. Do not drink Rice River water. Hold on for another 3 days. If Xiangyu still poisons, then withdraw. Also, what about Lin? LV Zhao said disdainfully, "That cowardly rat has already led his troops to the sword pavilion. He doesn't even dare to step into Wugu City's territory. He has been scared out of his wits by the imperial dogs." Qin Yi said lightly, "Lin is not that kind of person. All right, all of you are dismissed. Prepare for the withdrawal." In the following days, a large number of people in Wugu City died. On the 4th of July, Wugu City was breached. When Xiangyu and the imperial army entered Wugu City, they found that it was already a dead city. Excluding the hundreds of thousands who escaped from the city, the remaining 8 million people were all poisoned to death. The Iha country's army that could not retreat in time was ambushed by Xiangyu's army. 30,000 people were killed and 40,000 were captured. On the 7th of July, Xiangyu led 30,000 troops to pursue Qin Yi. They were ambushed by Lin's sword pavilion and lost more than 10,000 men. He then decided to withdraw. On the 15th of July, year 7731 of the empire's calendar, Feng Jixing defeated the Heaven's Corps and captured 40,000 men. He also captured Yuqi Tian and Yuqi Yen, recovering Divine Shadow City and Heaven's Core Province. At this point, the neighboring Earth Star Province, Songnan Province, and Heaven's Core Province were all recovered and incorporated into the Empire's territory. Apart from a small portion of the Iha country's troops that remained in Tongtian Province and Lingdong Province, the rest of them retreated to Lingnan. At this point, the empire was divided into two. On the 21st of September, year 7731 of the empire's calendar, Qin Yin was crowned empress. She was given the title Empress, and the empire's name was still Qin. Chapter 318. It was September 21st, the day of the Empress's coronation. On this day, there was only laughter and joy in Lanyan City. Qin Yin's proclamation as the Empress was tantamount to announcing the true reconstruction of the empire. The people of Lanyan City had suffered deeply from the massacre of the Iha kingdom. This kind of pain penetrated deep into their bones and was unforgettable. Compared to the hypocrisy of the Iha kingdom, the people loved this generous and benevolent empress even more. The square of Zetian was crowded with countless commoners who had come to watch the empress's coronation. The crowd crowded from Zetian Palace Hall all the way to Tongtian Street. It was extremely lively. Accompanied by the ringing of the bell, the officials divided into two groups and stood outside the main hall. The square of the main hall was filled with the newly organized imperial guards and imperial guards in bright armor. Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu, the two famous generals who had just been promoted to first-rank generals, stood guard outside the main hall. "Your Highness, please," Su Muyun shouted with a smile on his face. Surrounded by the officials, Qin Yin slowly walked out of the main hall. Her beautiful face was expressionless as she stood there gracefully and calmly looked at everyone in the main hall. Her hair was coiled up high and was inlaid with the Empress's golden swan neck crown. It was elegant and dignified. Under the velvet shawl, she wore an exquisite blue robe that was the same color as the uniform of the Empire's soldiers. Her waist was adorned with gold and silver tassels, and her perky twin peaks protruded from the front of her robe. On the front of her robe, there was a gold-bordered purple flower, which was the Empire's emblem. "Xiaoxi, present the pearl of imperial power." At her command, Tang Xiaoxi, who was dressed in a beautiful red dress, held a tray in her hand and respectfully came in front of Qin Yin. She looked up with a smile and said, "Xiao Yin, come." Qin Yin nodded with a smile and reached out to hold the golden scepter. This was the treasure that represented the royal power and was once held by Qin Jin. Holding the scepter in one hand and the golden and blue pearl in the other, Qin Yin's snow-white face carried a faint smile as she turned to look at the officials in the main hall and the people of the empire in the distance. For a time, the whole Lanyan city seemed to be boiling at this moment. "Xiaoxi, come with me." Qin Yin turned to look at her best friend. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and reached out to hold Qin Yin's little hand. The two of them walked step by step towards the throne. Below the throne, an attendant was holding a golden laurel crown. This was a custom-made laurel crown for the empress. "Grandfather," Qin Yin said softly. Su Muyun hurriedly went forward and knelt on one knee. Then he lifted up the laurel crown and took off Qin Yin's original crown, putting this supreme laurel crown on her. In an instant, all the officials knelt down and shouted, "Long live Her Highness the Empress." "You may rise." Qin Yin gently raised her hand. After all the officials stood up, she said, "All of you have helped Qin Yin recapture Lanyan City and even recovered Sangnan Province, Tianshu Province, and Earth Star Province. 6 of the 8 provinces in Lingbei have returned to the Empire's territory. On behalf of the family, Qin Yin thanks all of you for your hard work and contributions." She bowed and made a ladylike bow. Immediately, all the officials were overwhelmed by the favor and returned the bow. Qin Yin blinked and continued according to the agreed procedure. Duke Yun of Yunzhong Province, Su Muyun, has contributed greatly to the Empire of Great Qin. He is specially conferred the title of Duke Yun, which can be passed down from generation to generation. Everyone shouted, "Congratulations, Duke Yun! Congratulations, Duke Yun!" Su Muyun knelt respectfully in front of Qin Yin and said, "Your old servant thanks your highness." Qin Yin continued, "Duke Lan of Qihai Province, Tang Lan, has contributed greatly to the Empire of Great Qin. He is specially conferred the title of Duke of Qihai, which can be passed down from generation to generation. In addition, Tang Jin's second son, Tang Lu, has been conferred the title of Marquis of Lingbei. Tang Ju's eldest son, Tang Tian, has been conferred the title of Marquis of Lingxi. Tang Jin's daughter, Tang Wei, has been conferred the title of Princess Wei. Everyone from the Tang family knelt down to express their gratitude. Qin Yin smiled and nodded for everyone to rise. Beside her, Tang Xiaoxi was the closest to her. She blinked and said, 2 marquises and 1 princess. Grandfather wants you to confer these titles? Qin Yin's voice was very soft. The Tang family has contributed greatly to the empire's recovery. This is what they deserve. Tang Xiaoxi laughed bitterly. Even though Tang Lu, Tang Tian, and Tang Wei are my brother and sister, they're all mediocre people. What ability do they possess to deserve such a title? Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. Xiaoxi, you're the best. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi looked at her faintly and said, Xiao Yin, the empire has just been stabilized. So many people have died, and so many fields have become barren. I'm afraid we'll need a few years to recuperate before we can raise the issue of war again. Also, according to Duke Yun and grandfather, I, as the princess of Qihai City, will also be going to Demon Subduing Pass. When are you leaving? Qin Yin seemed lost. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and held her hand, saying, I'll leave tomorrow, but don't worry, little Yin. As long as you need me, I can come back to Lanyan City to see you at any time. Also, Duke Yun seems to be worried about the demon clan. If I don't personally guard the Demon Subduing Pass, he's worried that the demon clan will re-enter the central region. Yes, grandfather is too paranoid. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said, It's just that I can't stay in Lanyan City to accompany you every day. It'll be very boring for you to be the empress. If only you was here. Qin Yin's eyes turned red, and she wanted to say something but stopped. That night, Zetian Palace held a banquet to entertain the officials. Feng Jixing, Zhang Wei, and Wei Qiu sat together, chatting casually. Meanwhile, Xiangyu was even more glorious. The rank of commander-in-chief on his shoulder glowed with a golden radiance, complementing the proud look on his face. Congratulations to young Lord Tang Lu for being promoted to the Marquis of North Ridge. Xiangyu cupped his fists and said to Tang Lu with a smile. Tang Lu was young and successful, so he didn't put anyone in his eyes. The corner of his mouth rose. What are you talking about? I can't compare to General Xiangyu. My title of North Ridge Marquis is just an empty title. How can I compare to General Xiangyu? A rice river was turned into a river of dead people by General, and Five Valley City, one of the 7 famous cities of the empire, was turned into a dead city by General. In this world, I'm afraid no one can compare to you. Xiangyu was stunned, and his face turned ashen. A general's success is built on the bones of tens of thousands. This is the way of the ancient times. Marquis, why do you have to ridicule me like this? Ridicule? Tang Lu couldn't help but laugh. He patted Xiangyu's shoulder and moved closer to him. Xiangyu, you're just a stray dog. If grandfather hadn't taken you in, would you have had the chance to accomplish anything? But you're a smart person. I think you should know what to do. Xiangyu's face turned pale. He cupped his fists and said respectfully, Marcus' lesson is right. Xiangyu will forever remember Duke Lan's kindness of giving me a new lease of life. If I forget, I'll definitely be stabbed by a sword. Good, that's good. Tang Lu smiled and passed by Xiangyu in a drunken manner. He went to greet Tang Tian, who wasn't far away. One was North Ridge Marquis, and the other was West Ridge Marquis. Tang Lu and Tang Tian could be considered to have a sufficient status in the empire. In the side hall of the banquet, Qin Yin sat beside Su Muyun in silence. Xiao Yin, what's going on? Su Muyun asked with a smile. Qin Yin's gaze stopped on the fruit platter on the table. She mumbled, Grandfather, I want to rebuild the military system and turn the Longdan army camp into a regular army. I want to build an army of 30,000 men and promote Wei Chou to a 3rd-rank country protector general. What does grandfather think? Expand the Longdan army camp? Su Muyun frowned. He patted Qin Yin's shoulder and said with a smile, Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Wei Chou is still young. If you want to put him in an important position, you can let Wei Chou come to the Iron Blade Army to be a captaincy. I believe he's competent enough. Why? Qin Yin clenched her fist and bit her red lips. Why don't I, the Empress, have the authority to build an army? Su Muyun smiled faintly. Silly child, what nonsense are you thinking about? You are indeed the empress, but grandfather will help you with the matters of the army. Your Aunt Lien will also help you. You don't have to worry. Moreover, you're not young anymore. Grandfather doesn't have to worry about other things, but your marriage. Qin Yin remained silent. Su Muyun continued. Qin Yen, that brat, is the son of Prince Jining. After Prince Jining and His Majesty were killed at the Fairy Lake, many of Prince Jining's former subordinates had contact with Qin Yen. I think his character is not bad. Little Yin, if you don't mind, in another 2 years, when Qin Yen comes of age, grandfather will arrange your marriage. How about that? Qin Yin clenched her fists so hard that her nails were about to sink into her flesh. Tears swirled in her eyes. She shook her head lightly and said, "There's no need. Qin Yin has already grown up. I will be with the person I love. Don't mention this matter again. Otherwise, grandfather, you know my temper." Su Muyun was stunned. I know you're stubborn. If you don't want to, then forget it. Xiao Yin Tanglon is now the empress. The military power under her control is getting stronger and stronger. Haven't you thought about anything? That's between the two of you. I don't want to interfere. Qin Yin stood up and said, I'm going to look for Xiao Shi. I won't accompany you. Looking at Qin Yin's lonely back, Su Muyun let out a long sigh. At the side, Su Yu drank a cup of grape wine and said indifferently, Father, Xiao Yin is not your puppet monarch. What you're doing is too much. Su Muyun turned to look at his daughter. In the cold night, his gaze was like a sword. 100 miles away, compared to this banquet filled with fine wine and delicacies, the dragon-seeking forest seemed much colder. It was already autumn, and the nights were already very cold. Yet at this moment, a heavy downpour fell from the sky. Boom! The mountain suddenly collapsed, and a large section fell off. It also washed out the purple crystals that were buried under the soil and rocks. The rain washed the purple crystals very clean. After the heavy rain stopped, the clouds parted and the moon shone brightly. The light from the stars in the sky shone on the crystal. Suddenly, the eyelids of the person in the crystal seemed to move. Do your best. The 7 luminaries demon emperor called again and again. Lin Ruoji, it's time to wake up. Since you've already absorbed the light from the stars, your soul should be awake. How long do you want to sleep for? I'm a god emperor, but I've been calling you like a midwife for a few months. How can I endure this? All of a sudden, the soul that had been asleep for a long time woke up. His Yi was in a state of chaos. Wisps of white light condensed into Lin Muyu's body. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the chaos around him. He could not help but ask, where am I? You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.